Good evening. I will reconvene in open session this meeting of the Arlington ISD Board of Trustees on October 3rd, 2024 at 7:01 p.m. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Our board meetings are open to the public and we welcome everyone and thank you for participating in public education. While our meetings are open to the public, this is a meeting and we do have business to conduct. Disruptions will not be permitted, and anyone who disrupts the meeting or speaks when others are speaking, except that one right there, may be asked to leave or be escorted out by the security attending the meeting. We will start our meeting with the opening ceremony. Please join Ellison Coombs in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Ms. Foster, did you have information to share about Ms. Coombs?
Thank you, Ellison. Ellison is one of our 5th grade students at the Jones Academy of Fine Arts and Dual Language. Congratulations, you did a great job.
At this time, I had asked that everyone silence their cell phones and electronic devices to avoid disruptions to those around you. And now we will have our moment of silence. We'd like to ask you tonight to keep the family of Bowie Hogg, former trustee, current city council member, in your thoughts. His mother, Sue Hogg, a former district educator, passed away. Thank you. I'm going to switch things up here just a little bit and ask our open forum for agenda items requesters to just be patient a little bit longer so we can get our programs presentations underway. And we have 4 recognitions tonight. Our first one, I will turn over to Ms. Foster.
Thank you very much, President Chapa, members of the board, Dr. Smith, all of you lucky people here tonight, everybody watching online. As you can see, we have a very colorful presentation for y'all tonight. This is going to be outstanding as we welcome Thornton Elementary's Ballet Folklorico. Give them a big round of applause. We are here in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. We have 32 members of this company, and anyone can join. They're 1 year in to their Ballet Folklorico team. So they're all very new at this, but you're not going to know it when you watch them perform. We are so proud of y'all. We're going to introduce your performance, but first we want to introduce you to our director, Tamara Edwards. Give us a wave. Yay! And we're going to turn it over to Thornton Elementary's Ballet Folklorico for a special presentation of Los Machetes.
All right. We have been celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month all across the district and continuing that tonight. That was a great performance from Thornton Elementary. We'll move on now to our Student of the Month, our recognition item B. I'll turn it back to Ms. Foster.
Please welcome Dr. Ben Bolin.
All right, President Chapa, Dr. Smith, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to recognize one of the outstanding students in AISD and at ACCHS. And before I get started, I do want to recognize one of our staff members that is here to support our students and who always does that every day, the best security guard in the district, Officer Mark Gallegos. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce the Student of the Month from Arlington College and Career High School, senior Liliana Bolin. Lily has accomplished a great deal in her time at ACCHS. She has acquired over 60 college credit hours and earned her associate's degree from Tarrant County College in May of this year before officially starting her senior year. Her hard work has helped her to become a member of Tarrant County College's Dean's List and the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. At ACCHS, Lily is a member of Student Council, the National Honor Society, and Key Club. She has also taken advantage of the opportunities available to accelerate her learning as she is currently enrolled at UTA, taking a dual credit course as a participant in our Titan Scholars Program. Over the last 4 years, Lily has spent time volunteering at ACCHS, for Mission Arlington, and at her local church, including teaching Vacation Bible School in the summer. This has been great preparation for her future goal, which she has talked about since she was a toddler. Next year, Lily will attend a university to major in elementary education in order to become a teacher. Out of all of the outstanding students at ACCHS, the senior committee, I'm not included in that committee, is the ones who selected Lily for this honor. Here's a summary of a few things that her teachers and staff had to say about her. Lily is an exceptional and humble individual who radiates kindness and positivity in everything she does. She demonstrates honesty, integrity, compassion, and always strives to understand others' feelings. She sets an example for others through her outstanding character and dedication to service. Lily is always positive and was a joy to have in class. She always brightens my day with her smile. Lily is very dedicated to her classwork. Her kindness has a huge effect on all who are around her. She has matured so much over the past few years, but she still maintains the same cheerful and sweet disposition every day. She is truly an example to others of what it means to be a Titan. So for a second, I'm going to take off my principal hat and put on my dad hat. As your father, I want to take this moment to tell you how proud your mom and I and your sister Bella are of you as an individual. I know it isn't easy being the principal's daughter, always avoiding me in the halls and ducking down in your seat when I come into a classroom you happen to be in to talk to students and always thinking, please don't call on me, please don't call on me. I also realize this makes you have some extra pressures on you that other students may not. I want to say you handle all of it with so much grace every day. Thank you for being a great representative of ACCHS and of AISD. I love you and thank you for being an amazing daughter. We all can't wait to see everything you're going to achieve in the future. Congratulations, Lily Bolin.
Superintendent Smith and AISD board members, Thank you for all the hard work you do to make our district such a great place to go to school, and thank you for taking the time to recognize the students in AISD. Here with me tonight is my dad, Ben, that you already met, my mom, Kirsten, my grandma, my aunts Ruth and Sharon, my cousins Grace, Drew, and Derek, and watching online is my grandpa, Frank, my aunt Lynn, Aunt Kimberly, and my sister Bella is watching from college. I am very surprised and grateful to receive this honor. Previously, I attended Wood Elementary, Bowles Junior High, and now ACCHS. I wanted to go to ACCHS because of the opportunities the school provides, a small learning environment, a supportive staff, and the opportunity to advance in your education. During my last 4 years, I have learned how to study, take notes, write quality papers, prepare for tests, and everything else that is required for the challenging college courses I took over the last few semesters. Without the preparation I received at ACCHS, I know my first year of college would have been a struggle. I am so grateful for the many teachers that have helped me along the way. I would like to specifically thank my PATH teacher, Mrs. Spino, for really caring about us the last 4 years and always making sure we are prepared for college. I would like to also thank our Key Club and Honor Society sponsor, Ms. Dowell, for always bringing her positive energy everywhere and helping us serve the community. And I'd like to thank God for guiding me through this journey. After graduation, I'm looking forward to continuing my education at a university. My top choices are TCU, Baylor, and Texas A&M, but as my dad always reminds me, it'll come down to costs. I want to eventually become a teacher, and I would like to teach 1st or 2nd grade. This has been a dream of mine since I was little and used to play school with stuffed animals and my friends. One day, I am hopeful I will even have an opportunity to teach for AISD. ACCHS has also taught me much more than academics. I've learned how to appreciate my family, my friends, and everything that life presents to me and how to help others in need. The volunteer opportunities I have participated in have been very rewarding and have motivated me even more to become a teacher. I would like to thank AISD for creating opportunities like ACCHS as well as other great programs for students. They really do make a difference and can open the door to opportunities many of us may never have. I am very grateful for this honor. Thank you.
Congratulations, Liliana. It's great to hear about all the things that you're doing, and it's also awesome to hear that you want to be a teacher. If we could extend you an offer today, we would probably do that. Yep. So whenever you want to come back, you let us know. We do have a special recognition that we do for every student of the month, and so at this time I'll ask Dr. Smith and Mr. Mike will go down tonight to present you.
I gotta admit, I teared up a little bit there too. I think this is a really special night because honoring students like you that are putting in hard work in our school system is a true joy for our trustees and for myself. I can promise you that. But hearing the opportunity for your dad to present this to you was pretty special as well. Ben, I like that you noted I'm not on the committee, but we heard her resume and the things that you've done. So thank you for putting forth the effort to do amazing things in our school system. Thank you for being a student that we're extremely proud of and excited to recognize you tonight. And I was looking for a business card to hand to you right now along with this. You come right on back when you're done at whatever school you and your dad and family choose, it sounds like. You come right on back. We would love to have you in Arlington ISD. It's my honor to present you with our High School Student of the Month Award. Congratulations. Mr. Mike has something for you as well. So I'll go ahead and introduce it. This is a very special pin. You can see Mr. Mike's got one on. I've got one on myself. So these pins are worn in recognition of being a part of the Arlington ISD family. So with this award, you're a part of the Arlington ISD family. Just remember that when you're all done with school. Congratulations. Where do you want to spin this way? Yeah.
All right, our next recognition, item C, is our Community Partner Award of Appreciation, and I'll turn it over to our Executive Director of Engagement, Equity, and Access, Aaron Perales.
Good evening, President Chapa, Dr. Smith, members of the board. Thank you so much for this forum to once again say thank you to a community that has such a great heart for our students, families, and staff. This evening, we have the opportunity to recognize a wonderful organization that has staying power in our school district, and I would enjoy the opportunity to celebrate them at this time. Celebrating 30 years of support for our school district, as indicated by President Chapa's shirt. Saw you wearing that on the way in, that's cool. The Arlington ISD Education Foundation, AEF, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization formed in 1994 to serve our public school students through fulfilling extraordinary educational needs and initiatives. The foundation is governed by an all-volunteer board of directors who are former educators, community members, and successful representatives from the business and service sectors, and supported by an awesome administrative team. Board members are heavily involved in fundraising, event planning, and grant proposal evaluation. A key component of their support for Arlington ISD is their annual offering of innovative classroom and teaching grants. Arlington ISD teachers and staff can submit grant requests up to $10,000. All grant winners are selected through a competitive review process. On average, they have awarded approximately $100,000 annually to teachers for innovative projects. However, during the 2022-2023 school year, the foundation awarded a total of $211,844 to 27 teams for their projects. But the work didn't stop there. Last year, during the 2023-2024 school year, the foundation exceeded this mark and awarded a record total of $253,956 to 40 teams for their projects. A few fun aspects of the grant process include the annual prize patrol that visits our campuses and departments to share the announcement of their grant award, an annual celebratory dinner recognizing every grant recipient, and a silent auction comprised of decorative plates designed by fourth graders from across the district with proceeds benefiting teacher grants. The foundation is a collaborative organization that links Arlington ISD with grant opportunities from various foundations and organizations as well. For instance, recently the AEF helped Arlington ISD secure a $100,000 grant from the Texas Rangers Baseball Foundation to support education, physical development, and athletics for our pre-K students. During difficult times, the foundation offers support where possible. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, AEF contributed $30,000 to help Arlington ISD provide hotspots, enabling students to continue their education from home while schools were closed. To date, AEF has distributed over $2.5 million for educational resources and school district support. With their commitment, with their longstanding commitment to support our Arlington ISD, the Arlington ISD Education Foundation is a partner well-deserving of our Community Partner Award of Appreciation. And this evening, we have the President of the AEF Board, Victoria Farrar-Myers, and their Executive Director, Jeannie DeKine, here with us. Congratulations.
Well, I don't think I need to convince many of you, President Chapa, Superintendent Smith, and Board of Trustee members. Many of you sitting there up there have been in my seat where you've been on that board, and over the last 30 years have touched the lives of many teachers and many students. The one thing that I want to share with you that I think is important for people to know, October 19th is our 30th anniversary celebration. We invite you to come and celebrate with us. But I want you to remember what a teacher said to me. One day, I had an idea, and I thought everyone would think it's crazy. And so I put it away, never thinking I could do it again. And one day, I heard about AEF and this money that might be happening. And so I decided to dust that off and give it a try. They got that grant. They were able to touch 60 students with that grant, and innovative. And the one thing that I think was such a great part of that story is that teacher told us they were going to leave teaching, but they didn't do it because they got resources to do something that reignited the passion between students and their faculty members. So on behalf of the Board of Directors, on the Executive Director, Jeannie DeKine, on our events extraordinaire, Barbara Heitzer, and the rest of the board, I want to say thank you for recognizing us, because really it's our pleasure to stand behind you, the teachers, and the students of this school district in making a difference in the lives for generations to come. So thank you.
I'll just add one note about board sustainability. We're so grateful that over the past 30 years, we've had the opportunity to have the superintendent serve as a member of our board and a designated member of the Board of Trustees. So many of you have filled that role over the last several years. And so we'd like to thank Dr. Smith and currently Trustee Fowler for their service. Again, thank you to the community, because it is the community through your dedication and your generous contributions that we're able to make all of those things happen. So again, if you're looking for information on October 19th, you can visit www.arlingtonef.org and you'll get complete information on our upcoming gala. Thank you very much.
Ms. Richardson?
I had a question. I saw something on social media today. Could you clarify something about October 19th for me? Did I see there's a special pricing for AISD employees or retired teachers?
That is correct.
Would you tell me more?
Yes, thank you, Trustee Richardson. We are offering discounted tickets for any current or retired AISD employee. If you go to that website that I just mentioned, there is a link to events, and on the events website, you will see a aqua-colored icon that is for half-off tickets for the gala for current and retired AISD employees.
And the gala will, for the first time, be held at our own Dr. Marcelo Cavazos Center for the Visual and Performing Arts. We had the dedication for that last night. At this time, I'd ask that Dr. Smith and I will come down and join the three of you and give you a special recognition.
We were so excited.
Yes, I know.
Well, Jeannie, Barbara, Victoria, thank you all so much for all the work that you do. Such important work. It's one of the most, one of my favorite times of the year is going along on the prize patrol with y'all. When you distribute the grants, you'll have really large checks and they walk in and surprise the teachers, and it's really great event, and then followed up by recognition at the Dreammakers Banquet, which is usually in February. So, Dr. Smith?
I just want to say I have been nothing but impressed since my time joining Arlington ISD in what AEF has done. It's an honor to be a part of the board, but it's an honor to see the work that you've done and to see it sustained for so many years. When I just heard $2.5 million that you've invested in Arlington ISD, that is spectacular. So thank you for what you're doing for our teachers, but most importantly in all of this, thank you for what you're doing for the impact on our students. We appreciate you immensely.
You want me on that side?
Here we go. Okay, good. Towards 4. Yeah. Okay. Fine. All right. Thank you.
You too.
All right, we have one last recognition tonight, recognition D. We have the National Life Group Foundation Beats for Good. Turning it back to Ms. Foster.
Thank you, President Chapa. We do have the National Life Group Foundation Beats for Good with a special announcement, very exciting tonight. So please welcome Luciano Varela and Ruth McDuffie.
Hello. Good evening, Superintendent Smith, President Chapa, and to the dedicated board members. I am Deb McDuffie.
And I'm Luciano Varela, and we're excited to be from National Life Group, your trusted 403B retirement provider.
Based in Addison, we proudly served our communities for the last 176 years, and at National Life Group, we believe in investing in our community, which is why we created Do Good Fest, a benefit concert for Parkland Health's pediatric behavioral health program. We recognize the power of music to promote mental health, and we wanted to create a program that showcases the incredible young talent in our community, as well as support musical education. In celebration of young musicians, last year, El Mariachi Tejano de Sam Houston High School kicked off Do Good Fest.
Good job. This year, we held Beats for Good High School Music Contest, and we're thrilled to announce that the grand prize winner, by popular vote, is Arlington High graduate Mason Moore. He will be the opening act at the event and will personally receive $1,000 for his prize, along with $5,000 to Arlington High School. El Mariachi Tejano of Sam Houston High School, who came in third, will also receive a $1,000 donation, bringing National Life Group's total donation to Arlington ISD to $6,000.
This year's concert is happening next Saturday, October 12th, at the Levitt Pavilion, Arlington. And for a minimum donation of $5, you and your family can enjoy a fantastic evening filled with musical performances, delicious food vendors. We're also excited to welcome three-time Olympian Shantae Lowe as a special guest. The Pearl Museum will also be there with interactive STEM activities, as well as an amazing race truck, Ozzy's Truck, a collaboration between country artist Jared Ashley and NASCAR legend Richard Petty to raise awareness of mental health challenges for active duty service members and veteran suicide.
With two winning acts from Arlington ISD, we hope to see as many of you there as possible. For 5 bands, you're going to see 5 bands for $5 is a great deal by supporting your school. If you'd like to reserve your ticket now, you can actually scan the QR code on the screen. We'll also share the graphic with the communication team. And I just want to say congratulations to Mason, congratulations Arlington ISD.
Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your support of our students and shining a spotlight on them tonight.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
You guys have a nice night.
We hope to have another winner next year because we're coming back.
Okay. I will go ahead and call a brief 5-minute recess so we can, folks who didn't get a chance to, maybe take some, we've got AEF left. We'll get some photos with AEF. Trustees, let's try to be back on the dais at 7:36. All right, we will return from our recess at 7:38 p.m. We will move back to our open forum for agenda items. As stated on the posted agenda, members of the public who desire to address the board regarding an item on this agenda are required to register at www.aisd.net/board-meter-speaking-request no later than 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. Ms. Acosta, do we have any requesters registered to address the board regarding agenda items?
President Chapa, yes, we do. We have 2.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Ms. Syed. Ms. Syed, I know that you are familiar with these rules, but I'm going to go ahead and state them anyway. This is a routine part of the school board's agenda for regularly scheduled meetings. This segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to share their views with the trustees on items that are on the agenda tonight. It is not intended to be a discussion or debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at an individual will not be tolerated. Personnel matters are not appropriate subjects for open forum. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Ms. Acosta will notify you when your time is up via the lights on by the microphone. Okay, Ms. Sand.
Good evening, President Chopper, trustees, and Dr. Smith. Thank you for giving me opportunity tonight to speak. And thank you, Dr. Smith. You implemented my suggestion that I gave you last time. So now the agenda is printed on both sides of the paper. Several people are asking me how this property tax system works and how this appraisal district system works. Well, all taxing entities, property owners, and appraisal districts are all bound with one law, and they have to follow it. That is Texas Property Tax Code. That's the book that everyone has to follow. Taxpayers, taxing entities, appraisal districts. And on this book, Chapter 23, Appraisal Methods and Procedures, it starts with all taxable property is appraised at its market value as of January 1st. This is the first line of this chapter. And I strongly believe January 1st comes every year. I'm seeking your nomination tonight and hope to get it from Arlington ISD. I'm the one who's representing me to please make me accountable to Arlington ISD and the people of Arlington. Nominate me and give me some votes so I can represent you. And if I do not follow this Bible for property tax code, you have the right to recall me if I do not follow it. But if you do not give any vote to me, you will not have any right to do anything with me if I am sitting on the board. I talked to Ms. Fowler. It was a private chat. When I told her several properties are not on the tax roll, that was not for Arlington ISD. That for some different parts of the county. Go watch the council meeting of Haltom City. Haltom City hired a law firm. It's called Purdue, Brendan, Fielder, Collins, and Mott LLP. They walked to Haltom City, they checked their tax roll, and what they found out as of September 23rd, 45 businesses were BPP account, business personal property, were not on tax roll. And those businesses were there for years. And people don't know about it. Now 86% of those 45 businesses already filed their rendition. Hope to get your nomination tonight. I will discuss it later when the meeting is over. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Syed. The next speaker on our list is Eric Kreil. Mr. Crowell, you have 3 minutes. You may begin.
President Chapa, trustees, Dr. Smith, good evening. I'm here once again to speak to you about the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. Last time I was here was to introduce myself to everyone on this board. This time I'm here to discuss my vision for the appraisal district. With the new reality that I spoke about last time, wherein the district must now consider 3 groups: taxpayers, tax entities, and the district itself, a new vision will be needed to guide decision-making and ensure district success. The appraisal district was intended to be an apolitical entity. Recent actions of the district have certainly called into question whether it remains that way. The district's primary focus should be to work towards determining fair and equitable property values and delivering those values to the entities in a timely manner. Furthermore, the district should seek to help homeowners by ensuring they receive all the exemptions to which they are entitled. Helping one group should not come to the detriment of another. With these ideas in mind, I've developed a 5-point plan, and it is my hope that this plan can serve as a blueprint for future board to address the problems currently facing the district and move it forward in a positive direction. Number 1, ensure complete and accurate computer-assisted mass appraisal data. Tarrant County is a rapidly growing county, and it is vitally important for the appraisal district to capture all this new data to ensure accurate tax rolls that will benefit both the entities and the taxpayers. Number 2, educate the community regarding TAD's role in the tax process. Number 3, legislative outreach to assist in seeking solutions that are important to all stakeholders. 4, the creation of a tax entity liaison to serve as a point of contact for the tax entities similar to the taxpayer liaison. And 5, a pragmatic approach that is proactive versus reactive. These are my ideas, and I would love to discuss them more. However, 3 minutes isn't enough time to go into depth. Should any member of this board seek more information, I would be more than happy to discuss further with you. Now, I would like to make a quick comment on tonight's recommended nomination. This board has the ability to nominate up to 5 individuals. It appears staff is only recommending Ms. Gloria Pena, and she is a well-qualified candidate, but it will take more than one member of the board to achieve the success that you seek. Also, do keep in mind that should you wish to recall a TAD board member for what this board believes to be a dereliction of duty, you must have cast a vote for that member in order to recall them. What I seek is an opportunity to support you and your goals and the goals of everyone that has a stake in the appraisal district. I want to create an appraisal district that works for all, and that starts by listening to everyone and being transparent in my thoughts. I'm a strong believer in public education, and I've been lucky enough to already secure some nominations, so my name will be on the ballot. However, if this board finds that our goals align, I will humbly ask for your support with a nomination. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Crowell, and I did receive your email, and I will give that document to the trustees.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes open forum for agenda items. We will now move on to the report section of our agenda. Our first report, item A, is our governance committee report, and I will turn it over to our vice president, Ms. McMurrow, who chairs our governance committee.
Thank you, President Chapa. Last Monday, our governance committee, made up of myself, Ms. Haynes, and Ms. Fowler, met to review policies BF Local and AE Local, which are here for your consideration tonight through consent. We also gave feedback on our draft updated legislative priorities that you guys will have access to very soon. We continued plans for our workshop that we finished out, not finished out tonight, we had part 2 of 3 tonight, around updating the content in our board handbook. And for anyone watching who's interested to see, our workshops are live streamed, and I really appreciate each of you for previewing that and your thoughtful discussion, because we're creating a handbook that is not just for us, but for the trustees of the future. And it's really important that we own everything that's in there. So I appreciate everyone earlier today. Also, if you haven't already done so, please complete the online questionnaire so that we can conduct our yearly board evaluation. It's a very quick web form, and staff asks that we get that in by tomorrow if you haven't already done that. And for those of y'all that are curious, it is the same board evaluation instrument that we used through TASB last year. And I love that because that way we can track linear data to see how we're doing from year to year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McMurrow. We'll move on now to report B, discuss draft 2024-2025 key progress measures. Dr. Smith.
Yes, I'm honored to welcome Dr. Collins up to present to you tonight. We are going to tag team this one a little bit, and I appreciate our trustees. I know that this is probably a little bit different for you. We are not coming to you with an action item tonight, nor are we coming to you with something that we have put out there ahead of time, gotten feedback. As we adopted priorities last time, we told you that we would come back to you with key progress measures this time and gather your input. So tonight we're asking you to take a look at these drafts that we have. We'll talk through a few things with you all. Input is extremely important to us. Our goal is to bring these back to you for consideration at the next meeting if possible, but we'll see how tonight's conversation goes. So, Dr. Collins.
All right. Good evening, President Chapa, trustees, and Dr. Smith. We are excited to talk to you this evening about the work that our administration has been doing around key progress measures. The purpose of our presentation is we really want to engage trustees in a dialogue around these draft key progress measures. As a reminder, there has been a lot of discussion that has happened over the last couple of months. So we've had discussion during board meetings. We've gotten to hear individual voice from trustees as well as from our administrative team, and gotten input from leaders as well. As a reminder, we have been through some of the steps already. So during our September 19th meeting of the Board of Trustees, priorities were adopted. And then tonight we are bringing you the key progress measures, which is step 2 in the process. We are not asking for action tonight. We're just looking for some conversation. We did take some feedback from our trustees and have adjusted some of the priority language based on your feedback in the last meeting. So you will see that the fourth area is now labeled marketing and engagement. And you'll notice that our culture bullet down towards the bottom includes students, staff, and families.
So a couple of things I wanted to make sure that we're clear in all of this. You drafted those priority statements. We decided on them together. These are the big, broad transformational items that point us in directions for the future. As you learned, discuss on a regular basis, role of the board is to help set direction for the future for us as a school district. You've helped by establishing those priorities. The next part is the key progress measures that you see underneath there, and that's where our administrative team develops annual targets. We work to put these in SMART goal format, and it's for the board to consider. The goal for these is to really help our organization strive toward progress in that priority area. And so this is where we bring the experts in and say, if we do these key actions help us move forward in that area. The next slide talks a little bit about lagging and leading measures, and one of the things that might be a little different for this board is I want to talk through this real briefly. The idea of lag measures are the outputs at the end, the student achievement outputs. Those are lag measures. They happen, we get the data, and it's after the fact. What we're trying to get to is to really focus on some lead measures, some things that we can do now that helps us achieve the transformation. And so while some of you may sit here and go, okay, I see these and I understand they're kind of in SMART goal format, but they might not be what you're used to. They might not be all student achievement numbers and saying you're increasing 5% in one area, et cetera. We're really starting to think about the adult actions in all of this. Next slide. And I wanted to bring this back. For those of you that have been through EISO training, and every trustee has, I know, TEA has their own version of EISO training, and I think some of you might have had this in the past. It's the evaluating and improving student outcomes. It's required by every trustee every 2 years. TEA's version of that training I am a facilitator for, and they have 3 areas that they talk about: inputs, outputs, and outcomes. And so I wanted to remind you of that language. I know you've probably heard that in the training before. We're really, when we start talking about changing adult behaviors, because we know student outcomes won't change unless we change the adult behaviors that go in, we're talking about really starting to set goals on inputs and outputs, not necessarily on outcomes. I want to be clear about this, trustees. You have to set House Bill 3 goals, and we will still set House Bill 3 goals. Those are the outcomes that we want to see in a system, the change in student performance on a standardized test. That's entirely okay. But what we also need to do is set some goals in our system that help drive the adult actions for us to get there. And so tonight, as you go through some of these, you will see some of these are adult actions that we're talking about this evening. They're things that we as a central office might do, or they're things that you might see on our campus that change adult behaviors. But without those changes, if we just set goals only on the lag measures or the student outcomes, we might not be changing the behaviors that will lead us to that. So that's the purpose of some of these key progress measures, is to say, what are you doing, Matt, superintendent, to help change some of the adult behaviors in the system so that we can achieve those priorities that we want to see as trustees? Does that make sense to everybody? Great.
All right, so the goal-setting framework that we're choosing to use is the SMART goal format, and so I think most people know what the SMART goal format is, but to be brief, it helps us create clear, achievable, and meaningful goals. And so SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And so as we wrote out the bullets that you'll see on the next slide, we tried to think through each of these lenses. Could our goals be smarter? Probably. We know that they're still drafts, and so your input as we talk about these will be very helpful for us. So this is very teeny tiny print, and I apologize for that. I think, trustees, you have a larger piece of paper that makes it a little bit easier to read in your folder, but we wanted to give you an opportunity to see all 5 of the priority areas together, and then on the next couple of slides it allows us to kind of focus in on the first 3 and then to focus in on the next 2. Our goal for this evening is to hear your input. There are way too many KPMs on this page. All of this work is still happening in Arlington ISD, and what we need to hear from you is what is your feedback regarding the strategies that you feel like are going to make the biggest difference in our system. And so we want to allow some time for dialogue for that.
I think it's really important to note what Dr. Collins said, is that a lot of this work is going to be going on in the system no matter what. But as trustees, what you're helping us do is say, these 5, 6, 7 things are the most important for us to keep track of over the course of the year. Matt, we want to hold you accountable for those on your evaluation. These are the things that we're going to eventually end up agreeing upon so that we, when we're in board meetings, we present out how our progress on that. We get input from you along the way. And then we, at the end of the year, present our progress on them. And we tell you, here's what we did, here's what we didn't do, here's the next step forward that we think. And again, this gives us an ongoing dialogue of the inputs in a system that can help us change some of the behaviors that we need to change potentially for our students.
So I think we would just want to open up the dialogue for trustees to share with us some of the things that you're thinking.
All right. Dr. Collins, Dr. Smith, thank you. Trustees, do we have comments at this time? Mr. Wilbanks.
I didn't want to go first. Thank you, Dr. Collins and Dr. Smith. Kind of just going through the list, starting at the first, and I know I emailed you about this, but on academic growth, I like the fact that we're looking at not just the lagging indicators for goals, but one of the challenges we have when it comes to academic growth and measuring it with STAR, we all know it's changed multiple times. We've had changes in accountability. And when we couple that, I think that fact with that's the best way we have to gauge as a district and as a campus where our students are performing. We also have a vision that I think hasn't changed, in that we want to be a premier school district. And I know a lot of us have different ideas of what a premier school district is, but certainly I think that we want to be one of the highest performing districts, especially among districts that are most like us. We are measured by TEA based on STAR. It's a flawed system. I think one of the ways we can achieve a goal of measuring how we are progressing in terms of our vision of becoming a premier school district is to see where we rank versus our peers. I understand we've got the growth point, and I really like the idea that we're using that as opposed to say the average of approaches meets the masters on STAR data. But how do we know if we're really progressing if they keep changing STAR year to year? What we used to do is track where Arlington ISD was versus a basket of the, since STAR is highly correlated to economic, the percentage of ECO-DIS students we have in our district. I would like to see us, and this is kind of this is my main thing. You've heard it from me before. We need to be comparing ourselves to make sure we're in the top quartile of a basket of our most similar peers across the state. And I think that needs to be at a minimum 12 that we choose. And I prefer staff choose it, not the ones that I personally keep track of, just because, but 12 to 16, and I like those two numbers because they're both divisible by 4, and so it's really easy to see if we're in the top quartile of our peers. That's going to take a long time to achieve. I know this is a long-range goal, but I would like us to adopt that and come back year in and year out and see where we are in terms of progressing to that goal. I'm adamant. I really think that needs to be in our academic growth KPIs. I mean, that's the main one for us when it comes in. And as I said, the benefit of that is they can change STAR all they want, but we all have to play by the same rules. That basket of 12 or 16, we're all playing by the same rules, so it's easy to measure we're actually making objective progress and becoming a premier school district. Now, that's not how I would define a premier school district, there's a lot to that. The student experience and a lot of the things that we've captured in our other goals. But for me, I think it's imperative that we have that as a KPI on the first priority bucket. Two, let me just go quickly through the other ones. I like what I see in culture. The other thing that I'll point out is the Wall Street Journal in safety and discipline. We're going to see in our staff survey that the number one concern of our teachers and staff is the safety and the ability to teach free of distractions and to feel safe in their classrooms. If you look at a recent Wall Street Journal article, they put a list of the top reasons why teachers are leaving the profession or are burned out. If you look at the governor's own task force that he put together, that was at the top of the list time and time and time again. So I would like to put, on that one, we've got to really look at that survey and look and make sure that we are making big progress in making teachers feel safe in their classrooms. And that's, unfortunately, in this day and age, safe from the tragedies that we've experienced here in our own district. But for most teachers, day in and day out, that's feel safe from major disruptions and discipline issues that they have to fight with. The one thing I know we don't want to do, there is a large district that was just recently taken over by TEA. They're taking a rather drastic approach. And I think in terms of solutions to reduce those disruptions in the classroom, the last thing we want to do is remove students and put them in an environment where they're on Zoom and they're getting a worse, their instruction is actually worse, not better, and that their student outcomes will be affected deleteriously. I think that's the wrong approach. We need to be more creative and come with a way to, again, make teachers feel safe and make the rest of the students in that classroom feel like they're free of disruption and they can learn, and the teachers can teach. But at the same time, we need, enough said on that. So that's, overall, I'm happy. My main concern is, one, on academic growth, that we align that more with our vision of becoming a premier school district, and also reduce our dependency on the year in and year out changes to STAR, which we can't control.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Richardson.
I have a brief question under the culture bullet, number 1. Either one of you may want to answer this one. Utilize the thought exchange during the 24-25 school year to gather feedback from students, staff, and families at least once per month. I had the opportunity to be a part of that when you did the pastoral luncheon last month, and you had everybody scan the QR code, put in, and it was really neat to see at the end all the different things come up. My question to y'all is, what will you do with that data? Because it's awesome when you ask people and you feel heard, but is there actual action happening beyond that input?
A couple of things on that real quickly. So this is about using a tool to increase feedback. So I totally agree with you. I think it depends on topic, and I'll use an example that I had recently that you'll be hearing about probably in my next superintendent report, or potentially the one in November. We put thought exchange out to the entire body of staff in Arlington ISD, and over the course of the week had, I believe, 800 participants, and so we got feedback from a tenth of our staff in a week, and it gave us an answer to a question. And what we're going to do is present some solutions to the things that they presented to us. So in one of my next staff videos, I'm going to go back to them. I'm going to say, hey, staff, here's what you said. Here are the things we're going to work on over the next couple of months, because you said this was important to you for us to work on. So it's that notion of being able to engage people on a more regular basis and to hear from them and then take action, so we build a constant churn of improvement for ourselves in the system. It will vary by question, but the whole notion is to have a partnership with our entire staff and not to be seen as a central office that's disconnected from them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Do we have any more comments or questions from other trustees? Ms. McMurrow.
Is that me? Thank you, President Chapa. So just a clarification question. Dr. Collins, Dr. Smith, is it our charge tonight to shave some of these KPIs down?
No.
Okay.
We're just asking you for some input. It's actually our staff's job to land on what we think is the highest leveraged work. We just wanted to make sure that we put them in front of you and that you had an opportunity to share any thoughts that you had.
Very nice. So my only feedback would be, I remember, I can't recall a board meeting we've had recently, and honestly, since your superintendency began, where the discussion did not include something about culture. So I look at all of these outlined 1 through 5, and I was curious about thought exchange, and I just heard the feedback that I needed from Trustee Richardson, and that's something that I know our staff and our parents see, and just the fact that that's your approach, whether folks can participate in a thought exchange or not. We have 55,000 students. So, we might not reach every single person, particularly not in 1 year, but I think that that's a practice that is really something that we should make and bake into our culture and our leadership. I love everything under the culture bucket. I also think we, as trustees, always need to keep our eye on academic growth. I love what you guys are proposing here. I have the same concern as Trustee Wilbanks, since the STAR assessment keeps changing. Will the full point of growth, will that be, speaking of SMART goals, will that be measurable, attainable, and all of those things in the acronym? Because if the assessment keeps changing, can we actually monitor that efficiently? And I don't think anyone in the room can play guessing games. We don't have a crystal ball. But that's the one thing that, I really yield to staff if that's going to make the cut or not. Of course, we want all students to grow. Is our current state assessment the best measure for that? That's the only question I wanted to elevate there.
I'm glad you brought that up. I just want to say something real briefly on that. We deliberated on this one a little bit, but the fact of the matter is, this year, we do not believe, unless something drastic happens, that STAR will change. And so this notion of growth and really trying to hone in on growth with the assessment system that we have right now, this was an attempt at that, realizing, no, we all have our own concerns about STAR, and I definitely have my own concerns about how often it changes. But this is a measure that this year we have some baseline data already in place, and we have the ability to build off of right now.
That makes sense. But yes, I love everything under resources. I understand that these are not favorable, but it's realistically what we're facing given the bounds by the state with our allocation. And we learned, and we already know, but we were reinforced with the information at EdCon with surrounding districts that we're not facing this alone. This is just the reality for Texas public schools right now. So I do appreciate staff mapping this out on the front end so that, we know as a district what work is ahead of us. I love everything around marketing and engagement. I did have a question. Number 5 says AISD will increase our net promoter score. Can you kind of share what that is?
I'm excited about this one. I was going to bring this up if nobody did. So a net promoter score is a typical business measurement, and it's often one that you all have participated in. You just might not realize when we get that survey sometimes, you walk out from an experience or you're done with an experience online, and they say on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you be willing to recommend whatever business it was to your family or friends? Basically, there is a formula there that allows you to be able to say, are you a promoter of our company, or are you passive? You just like, oh yeah, it's okay? Or are you a detractor from our company? And it's a typical business measurement that's used in a lot of ways. Sometimes we as public education get accused of not measuring ourselves according to specific measurements that the business community use. So this is one way for us to do that. Last year on the parent survey, which we increased, and I think, Natalie, you can tell me, did we increase 20 points on our participation on parent survey? I put her on the spot, my bad. So we increased our participation greatly, but we added a couple of questions there on a net promoter score. So we have baseline information of what our organizational net promoter score is by parents. Ultimately, what our goal is we want parents, staff members, students to be champions of our school district, meaning when they see someone in Kroger and they're shopping, they say, you need to come to Arlington ISD and let me tell you why. Instead of being passive, being like, it's okay, or being negative about the school district experience. So it's a measurement about their experience in our system, and I would consider this an output. It's a measurement kind of after the fact, but it's something that I believe we should continue to pursue as a system, and it helps us bridge that gap between business and industry a little bit and really look at our organizational culture. Are we really doing the things that help our teachers, our staff members, and our community say, I want to be a part of Arlington ISD?
That sounds exciting. I hope you guys keep that one. Finally, I wanted to circle back to something I forgot to mention about academic growth. Obviously, this is top of the mind for trustees. I do hope that these four we can keep and go all in on. I think a curriculum audit is just a good, healthy practice, and so I'm interested in that. And I do appreciate the prioritization of continuing to improve the quality of our professional learning. We want to create learning experiences for our teachers that we hope that they offer our children. And so I think it's really important that starting, at the district level, we model that and we continue to give our teachers new tools in their tool belts as things continue to evolve in the world of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McMurrow. Mr. Mike.
Here's the downside about being a trustee, right? When you set some goals and you put it out there, and then the staff comes back with all these great things, it's like a a la carte where you just don't know what to pick. Everything on here is just amazing. I really like it. The marketing engagement, y'all crush that. I mean, it is very, very good. I love everything about that. We've been hitting points on trying to figure out why families chose other options besides Arlington ISD, and those are, questions that have been on my mind. And so it really hits the marketing engagement piece a lot. When we circle back to academic growth, and I'll just point out things that I like. We'll just stick to one for each. Under academic growth, the curriculum management audit, I really like that. And like Sarah said, it's a good practice. And even, echoing the sentiment that David talked about, which was regards to comparing ourselves with other districts. There are other districts who are putting certain things in place that may be working for their students who have the same type of makeup as our district. And, it'd be good practice to see what they're doing and how that's working and compared to ours. When we look at culture, the thought exchange provision on number 1, where we're talking about doing that at least once per month, I think initiating that would allow us to pivot really quickly on what's working and what's not working. I know when you're talking about a big behemoth of a district, it's sometimes hard to move it, but if we're constantly getting in that relevant intelligence on a monthly basis, it really allows you to start moving things really quickly. Safety and discipline, the number 1, I really like the idea of implementing these things that are aligned to each individual campus. Because as we know, each campus has different needs. And figuring something out for that behavior support that tailored to that campus, that's only going to make us that much more better. And of course, market engagement, all 5, I love them. Resources, number 3, developing an agreed upon campus needs index. we know that certain campuses need things and others don't. And I like the idea of actually going in, diving deep, and seeing what that individual campus needs and allocating those resources effectively. Hopefully that, and I don't know if it does, this is a question, if that includes, looking at teachers and where certain teachers, when we're talking about very proficient ones versus new teachers, and putting experience where the campus needs are the most. We're just looking at it all. But overall, echoing the sentiment of everyone on here, I really enjoy this plan.
If I may just jump in on Trustee Mike's last comment there on resources number 3. This is another one that I was going to point out. And I will say all of these things that are on here, I'm really happy to hear some of the excitement. There's also realizing that some of these are really big work. And this is when we talk about developing a campus needs index to differentiate resources by campus need, we realize that there could be pushback to things like that as well. When you start saying X campus, this part of the district needs this, but another campus does not, that is a challenging situation to lead through sometimes. But I think we also know that there's a ton of research out there to say students that are more impacted by economically disadvantaged conditions in their home need different opportunities to learn and different supports to learn than others. And so we, as a district, have to be able to wrestle with that and where we stand, and ultimately where we stand as a team of 8 in weathering some of that if we adopt a key progress measure like that. So I just point some of these things out. Curriculum management audit, some of the same things. The way that is designed, that is a deficit audit, meaning they're not going to come back and say anything positive. They are there to tell you, here's the things that you want to improve is a whole system, and it's not just in curriculum. So there's really big work here that is not for the faint of heart. And honestly, for lack of a better term, if we go into this blind, we're cooked on this one, because we are going to struggle with managing expectations in a community if we're not really all together, all on the same page, and all pointed in the same direction when we adopt some of these things. So just something to point out, there is big work on these different progress measures.
Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, on that. I agree. There is a lot of big work here, and I'm just curious. I know some districts, once they adopt these priorities, they use that as the lens to kind of focus the work in the board meetings. What's the cadence that you guys anticipate reporting out to us on the board on each one of these large priorities?
So the thought would be, and it really depends on trustees and what your tolerance level is of me on some of this stuff, but the thought is that we would have a workshop maybe once a month at the beginning where we talk for about an hour on the things that we have done under that key progress measure, gather some board feedback, and have some just dialogue about how we're progressing, and then at the end of the year report out to you on how we progress. So you'd have opportunity every month to go deep into one of them, so that it's not just cursory every time, that we would actually have a deep discussion. Depending on what's adopted might dictate our cadence, because some of the things we would have to do earlier in the year and some of the things we'd have to do later.
Sounds awesome. Sign me up.
Any other comments or questions from trustees? I just have a few. I was going to call out the net promoter score, and because another organization I'm in uses that, and we recently got an update on ours, and I was actually surprised to learn that we have a 39% net promoter score already, because that's, in the scheme of things, that's actually considered a very healthy net promoter score. So that shows that we're, I think, already doing fairly well and moving in the right direction. So I definitely appreciate that. I had a question on the complete a 3 to 5 year strategic planning process by April 15th, 2025. Understanding that some of these can come and go, what do you envision the process being for strategic planning?
So we have gone through an RFP process, and we intend to bring a recommendation to the board to contract out for some support in strategic planning. A couple of key pieces for me. By you adopting priorities, you've already given a process voice of the trustees by saying, hey, these things matter to our trustees, and we've got to figure out a way to incorporate some of this into a strategic planning process. Our facilitator, the idea would be our facilitator of the process would also come work with myself and the board on ensuring that there are clear expectations at the beginning of the process, that we actually have a scorecard that we, at the end of this, that we keep track of every year on our progress according to the strategic plan. So I'm excited to bring a recommendation to you in the very near future on this. I think finally things are starting to converge there.
And is that, would that process mainly be among us and the facilitator in the beginning, or is there going to be a community input component to that?
Definitely. I appreciate you bringing that up. It would start with myself and Board of Trustees, and then there would be significant community input into all of this. In addition, by having the ability to use Thought Exchange, going back to the Thought Exchange one, we could use Thought Exchange to gather feedback and input from our community on some of those topics as well, so that we're exponentially expanding voice in our system.
So the last thing that I had, and I can see in some ways this could go into resources. I think it probably falls under culture more, but you know, in our discussions of culture and resources up until this point, something that's played a really large role in that is our compensation and benefits that we provide to employees. And I think it falls more under culture because, you know, establish a culture of support in the way that we support our employees. I think that we have done very well increasing our competitiveness with compensation and improving the culture around that. It had gotten pretty negative there for a little bit in around 2018-19. But I wanted to just challenge you, and if you want ideas, I might have, I could come up with some just sort of like, I don't even know if it's a real thing, but some sort of benefit. I know a facility would not be feasible to do in the timeline that we're looking at here with the priorities that we have. But is there some sort of, we've done well on compensation, is there something on the benefits front? Is there some sort of creative benefit program that we could, by the end of the year, study, develop, and commit to providing that thing for our employees? And just some things that have been floated in the past, you know, are things like employee child care. That's probably more of a facility side. And I know that on the resource side, we've got to always worry about costs, so there's something there. But, you know, even something along the lines of a constant thing that we hear, I think, everywhere in education, especially with the you know, where our staff typically are in their lives, is the burden of child care and the lack of a real parental leave policy. I mean, typically folks are having to rely on FMLA, or they have to use their own days. Is there something we could do? Is there a parental leave bank? Is there some sort of parental policy, something along those lines? I don't really know. I'm just throwing that out there, food for thought. But I do think there's maybe a box we could, or a number we could put on here that is a benefits-related KPM for culture.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. And so if there are no further comments or questions, Dr. Smith, do you have anything further on that? Dr. Collins?
No, I think we're good. Thank you for your input.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to report item C, our 2023-2024 staff survey results. Dr. Smith.
I'm glad to invite Dr. Lopez up. I may have got my numbers mixed up when I just put her on the spot. I had staff survey in my head, and I might have misspoke on that, so don't hold me to the 30% there. We are excited to have Natalie come present this information to y'all. Just a reminder, we actually outsourced this information this year. Natalie and her team are just helping us package this and talk through it, but this has been an important piece of the puzzle for us to look back on some of this information and ensure that we're hearing staff voice on an annual basis and not just on the Thought Exchange quick basis as well. So Natalie.
Before I begin, the parent survey rate tripled from 23 to 24. So President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith, thank you for your time this evening. The purpose of the presentation is to go through insights and the response to our 23-24 staff survey. Our annual survey is able to fulfill many purposes. I think most importantly, it allows us the ability to respond to pressing teacher concerns, followed by the results are able to enhance staff well-being of acting on the results. We're able to enhance staff well-being, foster a positive work culture, strengthen communication channels, inform data-driven decisions and interventions, and ultimately work towards improving operational effectiveness. This year, more voices were heard. We had an increased total engagement rate from 30.1% on last year's staff survey to 52.7% on our 23-24 staff survey, and had a representation of 78 campuses and centers and 46 of our central administration departments. I think that's largely due to many reasons. Cross-departmental collaboration, our office, research and accountability with Office of School Leadership and Engagement, Equity and Access, and Communications, certainly. It also doesn't hurt to receive an email from the superintendent with a video invite and the link to the survey asking you to share your feedback. We did an outstanding staff voice competition this year where we gave the 6 campuses and 6 departments that had the highest participation rate just recognition, a little award. And so, yeah, going to bring out that competitive spirit in our leaders. And then also we sent out text and email reminders. So our staff survey really is aimed at trying to understand employee retention and satisfaction. And it's most of our close-ended items cover 3 domains, or psychological safety as our first domain. And the factors with items in those factors are leadership awareness, culture of feedback, and strategic communication. Our second domain is campus safety and working conditions. And the factors with its items are violence, delinquent activity, and then procedural effectiveness. And then our third domain is data-driven decision-making, and looking at the factors data anxiety, data interpretation, and data application. And so it's the survey is mostly close-ended items, and this year we had 1 open-ended response. So we'll cover the close-ended and look at the year-over-year results from 23 to 24 because the items themselves did not change. So our year-over-year results. I'll start with the Employee Retention and Satisfaction Index. So that grew from a 3.8 to a 3.9. And that might seem small, but from a scale of 0 to 5 with over 4,000 employees at 1/10 of a point on that overall index is actually impressive. The Employee Retention and Satisfaction Index is measured from questions asking whether employees would reapply to their current position, the likelihood of employees to leave the organization, would they recommend the organization to a friend, and then the employee's anticipated tenure with AISD. I'll now move into each of the domains and their factors. So the first was that psychological safety domain. Increases across all the factors this year, but most notably leadership awareness went from a 3.7 to a 3.9. The second domain is data-driven decision-making, and that had some up and some down there, although slight. Anxiety went from a 3.8 to a 3.9. That's a reverse-coded item, so that's actually good for anxiety to increase. That means that anxiety decreased. And then finally, campus safety and working conditions. That domain increases across all 3 of those factors. And 2 of the key successes there are that procedural effectiveness increased from a 3.6 to a 3.9. And delinquent activity also increased from 3.7 to 3.9. Delinquent activity, like anxiety, is reverse coded. So an increase in delinquent activity factor means there's a decrease there. So that's a good thing. I'll move further into some of our quantitative highlights. And before I talk about the key successes, in the 23-24 school year, every campus principal set a SIP goal, their campus improvement plan goal, aimed at boosting their employee retention and satisfaction. They created action plans, and those action plans were specific to their results for their campus. So there was diverse strategies related to whichever domain or factor that was of interest to their campus from the 23 results. So that, amongst other things, probably had an impact on some of our successes. So our ERC score, that employee retention and satisfaction, increased that 2.82%. The subset of teachers specifically increased 4.9%. Procedural effectiveness increased by 9.55%, and leadership awareness was up 6.89%. So that's kind of taking a look at those, the 0.5 scales on those factors and putting it into a percentage value. Specifically looking at the question, what do you consider to be the most fulfilling aspects of your position? Making a difference and impact took the lead, very clear. And it was followed by growth, collaboration with team and leaders, feeling valued, engaging work, personal achievement, responsibility, and district culture. And although we had plenty of improvement and positives from our staff survey, there is always areas where we can improve. And so just some key challenges from 23 to 24, we had that slight drop in data interpretation, a decrease of 1.04%. Data application actually also decreased, but it's pretty negligible, negative 0.15%. So it wasn't enough to change the factor score, which was a 4.2, stayed a 4.2, because negative 0.1 is practically zero, but we report it nonetheless because it is an area that dropped. Only 47% of central administration employees reported advance communication of their work plans, and only 54.6% of central admin employees reported clear communication of their work plans. So area of opportunity for improvement there. And then when asked, what do you consider to be the most challenging aspect of your position? Far and away the first, student behavior, probably a large campus staff on that, more so than department staff saying student behavior, but then followed by workload, meeting student needs, be that social, emotional, et cetera. Communication, being clear, timely, and complete. Support from the district, quality and consistency. Support from campus, quality and consistency. Support from state and federal entities, and then role clarity. Moving from quantitative highlights into the qualitative section, we had one open-ended item on our staff survey. And to reiterate, ensuring staff confidentiality, we outsourced survey administration and the comment analysis to an external third-party vendor this year for data de-identification and then timely data turnaround. So the themes that follow are from vendor provided. So we asked the question, tell us if anything about what has worked that the district or your campus has done, or any areas where there could be improvement. So this first slide talks about the top 5 appreciations. And so tied for first is campus leadership celebrations and campus level culture of respect and collaboration. It's followed by kind of a distant third, fourth, and fifth of general appreciations, district level culture of respect and collaboration, and then access to quality curricular materials and robust support. And then the top 5 theme suggestions, kind of in alignment with most challenging aspect of the job, student behavior or behavior management practices, showed up on the qualitative side, followed by enhancing some campus leadership practices, then general concerns, just kind of general dissatisfaction, followed by balancing resource allocation, and then finally enhancing equitable compensation and benefits. And just as important as viewing the results is the response to those results. And so research and accountability collaborated with the Office of School Leadership, with academic services, engagement, equity, and access, and the communications department in order to create an approach to how to respond to the results. We thought we had an opportunity to enhance leadership capacity by having every campus leader and every department leader create an action plan for how they're going to respond. And the buy-in for this approach was just immediate. It was a great experience, and just kind of wanted to share some of the quotes from some of our campus and department leaders with y'all. I'm not going to read all these, but just a few. First one, it's not enough to just do the action. Principals need to let staff know, here is the action I'm taking in response to your comments, letting people know that they're heard. Another, we encourage teachers to nurture our students. They, in turn, need to be nurtured. And then another, culture is not a one-time-a-year thing. It's something to keep investing in. And so kind of the cross-department collaboration in order to create an approach was just very easy and immediate. And so it's kind of working together to determine what will it take to increase satisfaction even further. We had 3.8 to a 3.9 this year, and we have a goal of 3.9 to 4.0 for next year. And although satisfaction at the top of the mountain kind of looks like it's just right there. We know it's can be a difficult course to get there. And so there was just an understanding that it's a unified effort to amplify results. It's going to take more than just one or two leaders doing a few things here and there in order to increase satisfaction for a district with over 8,000 employees. But we all have a shared vision, even though there might be diverse approaches, different factors that get worked on, or different domains based on campus need or department need. And then ultimately there has to be transparency in thought and the results, and then in the decision making. So we were able to create a leader response toolkit. So RNA created a report on our AISD report site, received the de-identified data set, and so any AISD employee can log in and see the results of the survey by campus or by department. Great visualizations in that Power BI report. We also created a letter template, so just kind of like do a quick copy paste from that report onto the letter template and send it out to the staff. Hey, here's a strength that we noticed, or that I as the leader noticed on our campus, and then here's a weakness. Here's the link to the report. Go look at it yourself, and then we're going to get together and talk about this. We also created a PowerPoint shell for every campus and department leader. They can, again, just go in, add in pieces. They can delete slides if they want, add slides if they want. It's just kind of a starting point for them to use in that staff meeting, where they talk about, here's the results, how would you like to respond, what strategies should we create in order to increase satisfaction. We also gave a reference guide. Just supporting SMART goal setting also includes a link to TPES indicators and AISD leadership levels. Also included 20 reflection questions for the leader to maybe ask themselves or to consider as they're looking through the results. And so we're asking each campus and department leader to set actionable goals. So one big internal goal, identify a campus or department-specific improvement, base that on like an area of focus or a percentage positive. That can be at an item level, at the factor level, at the domain level. That is absolutely up to the campus and department leader. And then central administrative departments were asked to identify an area of improvement that would help better serve campuses or partnering departments. And that could be obtained by looking through that staff feedback actionable tips, which is basically the themes from that open-ended item. So some steps that have already been taken, and then next steps in action planning. In July, we had the advisory group guidance, where we did that cross-department approach to creating the process. Started the TPES and the AISD leadership level kind of mappings, finished up those mappings to TPES in August, and finalized the toolkit of the resources. In September, we were able to do campus and department leader trainings. The school leadership executive directors set expectations for campuses at all learning community meetings, and then the letters were sent out from each campus and each department, just kind of giving access to the link. We did our Outstanding Staff Voice winners at our September ILA. And then so now moving into October, we'll all of our campuses and departments will have their meeting where they go through the PowerPoint, look through the results, and determine their action plan. And then OSL executive directors will lead the campuses in that if they kind of need any support. And then supervising sponsors will lead department leaders if they need support. So it moves into our questions section.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Yes, Ms. Fowler.
Thank you, President Chapa. As you've kind of already mentioned, Dr. Lopez, we've asked the questions. People have responded. It's nice that we have asked, showing that we care, but the real important thing is the follow-through. Yes, and letting people know, we heard you, we're doing something about it. It's not just a survey to make us look good that, well, we tried, we reached out to you, but it's the follow-through that we have to make sure we do, whether it be teachers, whether it be the custodians, whether it be the bus drivers. If there are concerns and they think we need to improve, then that's on us to make those improvements and let them know, we appreciate what you've said, and this is what we're doing to make that happen. Yes, so I think that's the important thing as we go through, to make sure that there's actual follow-through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Ms. McMurrow.
Thank you, President Chapa. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. I had a couple questions, and I'll go in order of your presentation. Okay. Can we go back to the findings on data interpretation? Yes, that's fine. So when we look at data interpretation, we went down on that a little bit. And when I look at that, I can't see the questions in front of me, but I would imagine this is the ability for teachers to receive their data, assessment data, right? And be able to interpret, what does this mean for my instruction? Am I kind of,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
So my question around that would be, do you think this is going down because our teachers are drowning in data?
That certainly is a good follow-up.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is because I know, and this is just something for staff to consider and keep a very close eye on. I personally hear a lot from teachers about over-assessing, and we can't help state assessment.
Yep.
But we certainly can control how much assessments we require as a school district.
Yes, ma'am.
We used to require curriculum assessments, standard practice. We have really had an uptick in the number of assessments we require, unit summative assessments particularly. I know that as a fifth grade parent, I've noticed that some of the assessments may even have overlapping windows. So I just ask for staff to consider how often we assess, how many of them are required, are windows overlapping, and are we assessing to the point where our teachers cannot interpret their data and be responsive to it because instructional time is being taken away for assessments? So that's all I wanted to say about that. My next question was going to be about behavior support. So I almost mentioned this when we were looking at our KPIs for our priorities. I see both the qualitative and the quantitative data really, really screaming out to us, we need behavior management support. So that is one KPI that this data, I think, is driving us to consider keeping. So I do ask staff to consider that as well. It looks like both our qualitative and our quantitative reports, they match. And it's the #1 challenge, according to this most recent feedback. And as a public school system, we take all students, and we wouldn't have it any other way. But we really need to give our educators the tools that they need to be effective in managing all types of behaviors. And last but not least, I want to kind of touch on something that Ms. Fowler mentioned. I love the Leadership Response Toolkit. I think that it's awesome that you guys provide the shell so that instructional leaders can have, a head start kind of in being reflective in their own instructional leadership and also being able to bring it back to those that report to them. I've taken surveys before as a staff member of a school district wondering, who's going to look at this? Is this falling on deaf ears? But that leadership response is saying no. In fact, here were the findings for our campus or our department. Let's talk about this. And in addition to that, I want any staff member listening or watching our board meetings, I want y'all to know that we as a board and a superintendent, we monitor it yearly as well. We care. We care very much. So I'm so excited that we had a better number of responses this year. I hope we can keep doing this. And I know it's a lot of work. Even though we hired out for who gave the survey, I know it's a lot of work to still desegregate the data and build this report for the board, but I think it's such an important measure of how we're doing as a school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McMurrow. Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, President Chapa, and thank you, Dr. Lopez. It's great that we've sent this out and outsourced it. I'm just curious, is the vendor, and that they were able to keep the same question bank that we used last time so we can make an apples-to-apples comparison?
Yes.
I'm curious if they have kind of recommended, an iteration of this in terms of different questions we might add or might consider taking away, or I mean, it sounds like we've got a well-designed survey and it's not broken, we shouldn't fix it.
Yeah.
Is how I interpret that.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, good.
We did not receive any recommendations from the vendor. Of course, we didn't contract them to do that type of analysis.
Okay. Okay. The only other, the main point I was going to make, Ms. McMurrow already hit on, but if you go to the insights on challenges,
yes,
you know, a lot of these are the same thing that came up in the governor's teacher vacancy task force, and the same thing that was mentioned on the Wall Street Journal article in the graph that they put in the ranking of the concerns. And going through this, I know there's a lot of items on here that, you know, with the dearth of teachers entering the profession, and the need to increase our retention rates, there are a lot of things on here that we should really strive to bring down as close to zero as possible, like support from the district. You know, all teachers should feel that the district's there to support them, and the support from their campus leadership as well. But things like, you know, Ms. McMurrow already pointed out, student behavior issues. That needs to be a major KPI that we track, because that is leading to teachers leaving the profession nationwide, and especially here in, not especially here, but in addition here in Arlington as well. So that was good to see. And, you know, and again, my takeaway is there's a lot of things here we can really positively impact. And that's something I'm looking forward to seeing us do. I want to see those categories keep going down in subsequent years. The last thing I will say, make sure I've got all my questions here. So this is great. When are we planning? I think Matt was actually referring to our parent and student engagement survey. When are we going to see that survey?
I think whenever y'all would like. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we had it tentatively scheduled in November, but that's off the top of my head, so I'm not positive.
I'm fine with November, just as long as it's coming, because this is good stuff. So again, thank you to your staff. I like the response. Good stuff. We've got some work to do, though.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Fowler.
Thank you, President Chapa. I think looking at this and the student behavior issue is screaming loud and clear from our teachers and staff. And I think that's something that, I don't have all the answers, but I think that's something that we definitely need to get a hold of sooner than later. And the student behavior is driving teachers out. Student behavior is causing safety issues. And I think teachers don't feel like they're being supported. You know, they'll send the students out or they write the referrals, and teachers have told me 5 minutes later they're back and they're laughing. So I feel like what we're doing is not enough. It's not working. And so we've got to find a way to get student behavior under control, and then we can solve a lot of these other issues. But I think teachers don't feel supported in that. And I think that's something that we really need to look at as a board. What else can we do, or what can we recommend to help teachers and help staffs get these students under control? Because I hear that from a lot of teachers. Thank you.
Dr. Buell and Dr. McDonald actually already started work towards student behavior in late April and May, worked with teacher focus groups, all principals, surveyed additionally before we'd even had these results. We knew that was there. And then a committee was formed about behavior task force action plan for this year. And that is a piece in our district improvement plan that I will mention in my next presentation. So.
That's great to hear. It really is. And I'm glad that people are addressing it, and there's a committee and they're working on it. And I think we need to make sure that something happens.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I did want to point out real quick, I echo Ms. Fowler's concern on some of these things. This was the survey taken last year. As Natalie said, there has been some actions, and I do believe that is also on the board agenda coming up here in the near future, where we talk about that work specifically.
Ms. Haynes.
Yes, thank you, President Chapa. So on a lighter note, and a moment of highlighting something I thought was really neat, I like how creative you guys got with trying to include and entice people to participate in this. I think that it worked. I am a competitive person. I like incentives, especially when it involves having to fill out a survey that I probably don't want to fill out, but I have feedback that's worth giving. So thank you guys for being creative, and I hope you guys come up with some more cool ideas for the next one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Dr. Lopez, I don't have much to add other than I'm glad to see the positive direction and movement. I know that increasing by 0.1 doesn't seem like a lot, but in a system our size and with the issues that we're looking at, especially the challenges, the slide is up now. I mean, as Mr. Wilbanks mentioned, these are highlighted in the governor's report. These are things I think if you ask teachers over the last, 50 years, some of them would line up, pretty closely. Yeah. And so to be able to have positive movements against things that in some respects are endemic to the profession, and it's a hard one, to have positive direction at all is a very good one.
Yes, sir.
And now that we have this system in place, as we move forward from year to year, we'll be able to look back and see, is the improvement some noise? Are we kind of, holding steady, or do we actually see some sort of trend line? We'll take some time to get to that point, but I'm glad to see that we are moving at least in the right direction for this year.
Yep.
Dr. Smith, do you have anything further?
No, sir.
Dr. Lopez, thank you so much.
Oh, thank y'all.
Okay, that concludes the report section of our agenda tonight. We'll move on to the action items. Our first action item is action item A, consider resolution to nominate a candidate for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. Dr. Smith?
Trustees, I believe that Ms. Moss might come up. She was probably hoping I wasn't going to have her come up, but I think I'm supposed to have her come up. And she will walk you through real quickly our thoughts on this. This is a request for action tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, President Chapa, trustees. I'm always glad to come up. So tonight, each appraisal district is governed by a board of directors comprised of 5 directors elected by the taxing units that participate in the appraisal district. The current terms of the 5 appointed members of the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors will expire on December 31st, 2024. As required by Section 6.03 of the Property Tax Code, TAD calculated and provided a list of the number of votes for each school district, city, and county entity entitled to participate in the appointment process. The Arlington ISD is identified by law as a voting unit and therefore has an opportunity to nominate 1 candidate for each of the 5 positions to be filled. Taxing units are not required to submit any nominations, but if they choose to do so, the nominations may be made only by a resolution and adopted by the governing body, and the presiding officer of the governing body must submit the names of the nominees to TAD before October 15th, 2024, which means the nominations must be received by TAD no later than October 14th, 2024. AISD resident and former school board trustee Ms. Gloria Pena has served as a director on the TAD Board of Directors since 2020. She is knowledgeable of Texas property tax statutes, TAD operations, and TAD appraisal processes. Administration recommends that the Board of Trustees adopt a resolution nominating Ms. Gloria Pena as a candidate for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Are there comments or questions from trustees? There was some discussion earlier, and I just want to make clear that the ability to recall a TAD director is not contingent on the nomination that we will make tonight. That occurs when we make the vote in the future.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Do we have discussion? Is there a motion? Mr. Mike.
So based on what I heard tonight, we have the ability to nominate up to 5 people, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And Also, just a clarification, Ms. Moss, there are other taxing entities that have already nominated folks for the TAD board, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it
That's
only
correct.
takes one taxing entity to get them on the ballot.
That's true.
Can I ask you if either of the two individuals who spoke tonight have already been nominated by a taxing entity?
I don't have the answer to that.
Okay. Okay. This is an action item, and staff has, there is a proposed resolution that was included in the packet, and the staff recommendation is to continue with Ms. Pena. I agree with the staff recommendation. I've known Ms. Pena for a very long time, since I was in high school, and I know that she very capably served this district as a trustee for a very long time, and I would also add, has, in her limited time on the TAD board, very capably represented the interest of specifically school districts in Tarrant County. Ms. Pena, I believe, was the only TAD director to vote against the changes to the appraisal system that were done in July, which we almost certainly know are going to have a negative impact on us unless modified in some way or state action is taken in the legislature next year. I would add that we attended Tex EdCon last week, and I attended a session on this exact issue, and I was really surprised to learn that the appraisal system issue is not just an issue here in Tarrant County. We knew it had affected Cameron County because we knew that, and we now know that some of the TAD directors know that there's a $23 million hit to Brownsville ISD because of the changes there. But there have been districts dealing with this issue for over a decade, and the seminar was run by the folks at Orange Grove ISD and Alpine ISD, and they specifically mentioned Tarrant County as sort of what they hope to be a flashpoint that finally gets the legislature to take some action on this, because 160 districts are not getting their full per student allotment because of discrepancies between local and state appraisals when it comes to school finance. So I am in support of the staff recommendation, and unless there's a competing motion at this time, I'm going to move to adopt the resolution that was included in our packet.
I second.
I have a second. It's a motion by me. It's a second by Mr. Wilbanks. Is there discussion? The motion is on the floor. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Wilbanks?
No, I was just going to make the same motion, but I seconded. So
All right, we have Mr. Mike.
Yes, I'd like some discussion on this. I understand that Ms. Pena has, she was the sole vote cast against the change in the appraisal, but she was the sole vote. And so I think if we have the opportunity to nominate more than one person who understands the needs of this community, and by community I mean the needs of our future, which are our children, then it's incumbent upon us to nominate as many people as we can who understand that our future is at stake. And in order to educate our future, they have to have the funds necessary for them to be successful and not make decisions based on the present, but understanding it's the future at stake. There are two individuals who came in, and I'd like the board to be open to amending this resolution.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? And Mr. Mike, I understand that you're, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Was there an amendment, a proposed amendment?
Yes, I propose that we amend it from just one individual to include the additional two individuals who came and spoke tonight.
Okay, there has been a motion by Mr. Mike to add to the nominees from our district, Mr. Kreil and Ms. Sayed. Is there a second to that motion? There is a second from Ms. Fowler. There is now an amendment to the main motion on the floor. Is there discussion on the amendment? Ms. Richardson?
Yes-ish. Yes-ish. Here's just, I'm not speaking hypothetically, but I'm speaking in a bigger way. We have had candidates who have emailed, written letters, came and spoken to us, board. I know that I watch other districts' board meetings. And when I watch other board meetings, I have seen names that have come across us. And those names don't always match what has been told to us. I am concerned, whatever we do, whatever name we do, speaking in generalities, do we all have enough education on what is being told to us? If not, do we need to recess and take 10 minutes to educate ourselves to make sure what we think we want to do? The reason I say this again is we watch other districts. People should know we watch other districts. You cannot come in here and just tell us what we want to hear. I want to make sure that moving forward, I agree with you 1,000,000%, Larry. 1,000% I'm in. We need more people like Gloria who will vote and stand up for public education. We need to make sure that everyone is willing to do that before we make nominations.
So I will actually jump in here and say that I echo Ms. Richardson's sentiments. I don't think, but I would differ in one respect that I don't know if it would be appropriate for us to recess to educate ourselves tonight, what I would actually propose doing. I agree. We had some individuals who came, and this is no disrespect to Ms. Syed or Mr. Crow. We had some individuals last year during the voting aspect of this come here and came down, were very nice folks, very well-educated folks, and are, I think, very well liked in some segments of our community, but they made some, not commitments to us, but represented that they would represent our interests specifically as a school district on the TAD board. And we even, I didn't necessarily support this, in fact, I didn't support this, but we did reallocate some of our votes away from Ms. Pena to some of those individuals who then went on the TAD board and supported this appraisal system, gave us no advance notice, have not been cooperative in trying to get our concerns heard after making those commitments. And so, again, with no disrespect to the two individuals who've made the effort, and I'm very grateful for them to come and speak to us on multiple meetings, I think the most appropriate way to educate ourselves in this process that I'm comfortable with would be to stick with the nominee who we know supports us so far and educate ourselves in the interim between now and the meeting in which we'll take a vote. And if Mr. Kryl or Ms. Syed or any other individuals crop up on that nomination list, they only need one taxing entity to get them on there, then we make the decision about that at this time. But I am personally not comfortable with this district amending the motion to deviate from Ms. Pena.
May I ask a question of Ms. Moss real quickly for clarification? Ms. Moss, what was our deadline again for the nominations?
For the nominations, it is, well, we have to nominate tonight because it's our second board meeting. We have to nominate within 2 board meetings.
No, I believe we have, that's for the vote, but I believe we do have a deadline. I think this one is a calendar deadline, correct?
October 14th.
Is it 14th?
It's the 14th.
Yeah, nominations must be received.
We will not have another meeting.
Yeah, and that's what I was bringing up. I couldn't remember whether you had said the 14th or the 15th. And so I was going to point out that we might have a little bit more time if you wanted to table this, and it is also appropriate if the board would want to adjust that meeting date to do a little more research. I understand that as well. There are administrative things that we can do to try and help if the board has questions about things. We propose this, obviously it's our job to propose these things, and we propose this because, again, we know candidate, we know information that we have, and this was our recommendation this evening. So that's, if there's something else that we need to consider or to adjust in the meantime, we are more than willing to do that for the board.
Ms. Richardson, your mic is still on. Do you have further comments?
No.
Okay. Ms. Fowler.
And I don't want to misspeak for Mr. Mike, but I think our thinking is the people that are on the TAD board have not been kind to us, with the exception of Ms. Pena. And I think we're thinking, well, maybe if we put some more names on there, the people that were not for us might leave. And that's the thinking.
Mr. Wilbanks? Oh, 1 second, Mr. Wilbanks, can you pause? There you go. Thank you.
I retract.
You retract.
Mr. Chapa?
Yes, Ms. Moss.
I do believe that we had a slight issue last year with this because we didn't bring it to the second board meeting. So I think if we don't do it tonight.
I agree with you that I am not comfortable putting it off any further myself. That specific one, though, was the new statute that applied to when we cast our votes. And so that's the, but I do agree that it should be tonight. Ms. Richardson?
What's the saying? What's better, the devil you know or the devil you don't know? And I'm not calling either of you the devil. Ms. Syed, I can't see your eyes. I'm not saying you, and I'm not, as I look at you, but I just am so gun shy because of what has happened to us in the past. Are we allowed to ask questions of people who are here?
That's not generally been our practice, no.
I didn't ask about practice. I said, are we allowed to?
I will call on our attorney to advise us on that.
Dr. Smith, President Chapa, Board of Trustees. It is an agenda item. You're entitled to ask for information if you would like. And we don't typically engage in conversations with outsiders, but there is nothing that would prohibit it in the law.
Okay. So what I propose, what I would like, what I suggest, I understand we could be walking into something here, but this is my thought. If we were in the community, I would say, hey, can we grab a cup of coffee? Let's talk for a second. Instead, we're on a dais, you're out there. Could you each take 90 seconds and tell me why you're going to be a friend for public education? Why are you going to be a friend for public education? You want the position, you've researched it, you know what this, you held up, as you called it, a Bible. I don't know if I'd call it a Bible, but I would call it your book. I want to know and please don't give us 5 minutes. We don't want to keep our staff here that long, but.
So what I will propose is that we follow Ms. Richardson's suggestion, and Ms. Acosta, can you please set the timer? Ms. Richardson proposed 90 seconds. We'll do 90 seconds. If we could limit it to the question of what will you do to support school districts and public education, and that way we can streamline this and not have extended back and forth with,
yes, please.
With them.
I'm a product of public education. My husband is a product of public education. My kids are in public education. When my dad migrated from India as a kid and went to Pakistan, he had his public education and he studied in street lights. And from that position to up to the deputy treasurer of the country, he reached that position only by education. So you can change your destiny only with the public education. That is more important than anything else. You give one mom, an educated mom, and you can have the entire educated nation. And why I said this Bible, you can follow it as a Bible to follow property tax code. That's the main job of board of directors of appraisal district. That is not the job to take, look at the people's appraisal, valuations. That's the job of chief appraiser, not the board. But the board has to follow Texas property tax code. That is more important. TAD has the meeting here, right here. No one from Arlington ISD showed up and complained about anything about their plan. They approve it right here in this building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Syed. Mr. Cryle, you have 90 seconds if you would like to exercise that.
Thank you. I think the answer to your question is my wife works for one of the ISDs here in Tarrant County, so I hear from her every night about the funding challenges that you guys are facing with the allotment and the school voucher issue down in Austin. And so this is my point. My whole issue with the people that are on that board is you guys put them on there. And when I say you guys, I mean the entities. They never took the time to sit and listen to you. And so I'm not saying that I would vote 100%. However, like if you came to me, I'm not telling you I'll vote your way. What I'm saying, and my point is, I will listen to you and I will consider all the avenues. And I never thought, and we were beating the drums during the election, saying that this was going to happen because the three that won the election were wanting to do this. And it was planned. And I just, we're here the board is here to listen to you. And you need a cohesive unit. You're going to have 4 members that are going to be very anti-ISD. And it's going to take a group of people to come together to ensure that the schools and the children don't have to deal with this crap. I have no better word to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowell. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, this is an action of the board, and so I always want to be careful on this. I wanted you to know thought process on this and why we brought you one name. And it was honestly to avoid nominating others that we did not know where they stood on some of our issues. So that's why you only had one name in your nomination tonight. I think the way I understand the process and being new to the area, but the way I understand the process for the voting is we would have the ability to really take a look at how you cast votes based on who is nominated from other taxing entities as well. But we did not want to enter into a situation without knowing more about the candidates and propose someone to you that is not that would not be supportive of our public school needs. And so I just wanted to share our approach to this. I do think you have the ability when you talk about your votes on how to cast votes on things, but I also am concerned about, we were concerned about putting people on a ballot when we didn't know enough. And I just share that information with you. Again, we will do what the board needs to do this evening, but that was our approach this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I'm going to give Ms. Haynes an opportunity to chime in since she has not chimed in yet.
So, thank you. So Dr. Smith kind of just said what I was about to say. I was going to say that I think moving forward with the current nomination from staff is probably the best move at this point. And then as individual trustees being intentional about doing our research and being prepared and who we want to elect to the TAD board. I agree that we want to put people in those seats that are going to be advocates for our district and for our students and for our teachers. But I don't know that we have enough information to say wholeheartedly that we're doing that this evening by adding additional individuals. I will say that if you two are added to the ballot, I'll do my research and I will give it very thoughtful consideration. So I just am not comfortable doing it at this point in time.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Mr. Mike.
I think based on the current climate that we are in this county, it's not enough to sit back and be gun shy. I mean, it's not enough to say, oh, well, something happened to us in the past, and so now we're going to apply it to this situation. We are where we are at because of decisions that have been made in the past. And for me, our future is too important to be gun shy. We're just nominating. That's what we're doing. And to have multiple people on that ballot, I think is better than having the same that we had, because the same that we had is going to vote the same way that they voted before and not take any action to listen to us as a governing body. We had that happen already. And so for me, it's a no-brainer. It's easy to nominate people and put them on there and then see what happens on the vote. That's what I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Ms. Richardson?
One of the things as we're all sitting here and going back and forth, just quick research. The two that we have here have already been nominated by other taxing entities, and they've been nominated by TCC. So we know that they will be on the ballot for sure. So that's great. We just need to keep in mind that when we do vote, it'll be the top 5 who are making it. So whether we nominate them or not, if we stay with Gloria, either way, I'm saying I'm good now. I'm okay if we stay with Mrs. Pena, knowing now that they already have been nominated, that we're not eliminating viable choices. Because like Trustee Haynes said, we'll do our research and make sure when it's time, we know exactly what we're doing with those votes.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. There are no other folks who have requested to speak at this time. Then I'll ask that we pull up our voting prompt. The specific issue that we are voting on here is there was a motion made to nominate Ms. Pena using the resolution, that draft resolution that was provided in our packet. There was an amendment that was seconded to that motion to also add Mr. Kryl and Ms. Syed. That's what we were voting on. If you would like to add Ms. Syed and Mr. Kryl to our nominees, besides Ms. Pena, you would vote in favor of this amendment. If you're opposed to adding Mr. Kryl and Ms. Syed, you will vote against this amendment. Let's vote now.
Would you repeat it one more time, President Chapa?
Yes, if you would like to add Ms. Syed and Mr. Kryl, you should vote in favor of the amendment. If you would not like to add Mr. Kryl and Ms. Syed, you should vote against the amendment. All trustees have voted. The vote is 1 in favor of the amendment, 6 opposed. The amendment fails. We'll now move back to the main motion, which was the resolution as drafted, which nominates solely Ms. Pena. Further discussion or debate on that resolution? Seeing none, we'll move to vote on the resolution. Please vote. All trustees having voted, all 7 in the affirmative, the resolution unanimously carries. We'll now move on to action item B, our 2024-2025 HB3 and District Improvement Plan goals and performance objectives. Now, I just want to take a quick temperature check because we've been up here for a bit. Do we need to take a 5-minute recess for folks to take a quick break and then reconvene? I'm seeing that. All right, so at 9:16, we'll take a brief recess. All right, we're back from recess at 9:25. Ms. Richardson has asked for a point of personal privilege before we move on to our next agenda item. Ms. Richardson.
I wanted to make a clarifying point on the record. One of our speakers, Ms. Syed, said that we had said repeatedly no one from AISD attended that meeting. I just need you guys to be aware that our CFO, Darla Moss, attended that meeting along with Carla Martin, and just would like you guys to be aware of that because that is. Huh?
We were out of town.
Right, we were out of town as a trustee board, but I would like you to know our CFO and Carla Martin were also here. That just needs to be noted.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Okay, we'll move on to action item B, 2024-2025 HB3 and District Improvement Plan goals and performance objectives. Dr. Smith.
Yes, we have Dr. Lopez back with us today. As you noted, we're working to merge some systems and all of this, but this is an important piece of the puzzle as well. And so I appreciate Dr. Lopez being willing to present to us tonight on our goals and District Improvement Plan performance objectives. As a board, your obligation is to adopt the DIP performance objectives. I also wanted to point out that I think there was a question last time, when do TIPs come? Because TIPs and SIPs come together sometimes, or do they go with the DIP? Well, some changes were made in the TIP process this year, so those will end up coming later in the year. So this does not directly affect the TIP, and I wanted to be clear about that.
Okay, President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith, thank you for the additional time for the topic 24-25 House Bill 3 goals and DIP performance objectives. So the purpose of this is to present and share updated House Bill 3 goals and district improvement plan performance objectives with y'all for your review and then consideration for adoption or readoption. So the structure of the presentation, I'll go through the House Bill 3 reading goals first. That's going to be our pre-K through second grade screener goals, then followed by STAR goals for just third grade and eighth grade. And then I'll move into the math goals for those same areas. So I'll go ahead and start with our pre-K4 literacy, and our goal this year is to increase the percentage of our pre-K4 students who score on track from 78 to 79 by May of 2025. And this slide shows the disaggregation by student group towards that goal of 78 to 79. Our kindergarten goal for our screener is to increase the percentage of kindergarten students who score at or above benchmark from 69% to 72% by May of 2025. And this slide shows that disaggregation by student group. Moving into first grade, we're looking to increase the percentage of first grade students who score at or above benchmark from 62% to 72% by May of 2025. And this slide shows the disaggregation by student group. And then finally moving into our second grade, we're looking to increase the percentage of second grade students who score at or above benchmark from 58% to 71% by May of 2025. And here's the disaggregation by student group. This table provides a view of those literacy performance and goals by cohort. So the previous slides went through and showed you what the students in that grade level did in 24 and what the goal is for a different set of students in that same grade level for 2025 will be. This table shows you by cohort what was their prior year performance and then current year goal for the same set of students. So obviously for our pre-K, we don't have prior year performance because we don't measure pre-K 3. But moving on to the second row, our pre-kindergarten was at 78% in 2024. Those kiddos are now in kindergarten, and we're looking for them to be on track at 72%. There is a difference in the pre-K assessment and the kindergarten assessment, which is why there's a decrease in what they did last year to what we're expecting them to do this year. But then moving into the third row there, kindergarten, they performed at 69% last year. We're wanting them as first graders to increase to 72%. Same assessment, different grade now, same kids though. And then the final row, first graders last year were at 62%, and we want them to get to 71% as second graders. So that is a little bit of a loftier goal than the other grade levels.
Dr. Lopez, can I add one thing on this? Trustees, I wanted to point this out. This is a really important slide. This is based on our discussion at the workshop last time, and I think it was the second meeting in September. There were concern about how realistic are some goals and not. So what this slide does is it shows you, instead of just saying, hey, we're going to jump in one grade level, we're going to jump this amount. You're not comparing apples to apples. What this does is this allows us to say, same group of students, is it realistic for us to expect them to achieve that at the next grade level? And so I wanted to directly point this out, that this approach was based on our discussion last time. Obviously, we're going to be open to having more discussion on this, but I thought this was, Natalie and team did a really good job directly addressing some of that so we could have thoughtful discussion.
I'll now move into those STAR tested grades, just our third and eighth grade. So for our third grade students, our goal is that they will increase their performance in reading on STAR from 62 to 65% at the approaches level or above, from 36 to 39% at meets level or above, and then from 13 to 15% at the master's level by May of 2025. And this shows that disaggregation by performance level by subgroup. Moving into our STAR 8th grade reading goals, we look for an increase in the performance in reading on STAR from 71 to 71% at the approaches level or above, from 43 to 45% at the meets level or above, and then from 20 to 21 at the master's level by May of 2025. Now, for this 8th grade class, we used the incoming 7th grade class to create the goals. It's a different approach. However, if we just compare 8th grade reading last year to what we're expecting 8th graders in reading to do this year, you may have noticed the approaches we're not improving. It's 71 to 71. Yes, but our 7th graders in reading last year were at 67% approaches or above, which is, you'll see that difference value next to in the year 2 column next to the goal itself. Obviously, that's not the difference between 2025 and 2024 because 71 minus 71 is not 4. So we're looking for a 4% increase for that cohort from 7th to 8th. And then 2% at the meets and level or above. And then we're looking for that class to maintain at master's level. And then this is the disaggregation by performance level and subgroup. I'll now move into those same grade levels and screener and STAR. So for pre-K4, looking for an increase in the percentage of pre-K4 students who score on track in numeracy from 92% to 92% by May of 2025. That goal actually was adjusted from the original 5-year goals that were adopted because last year our pre-K4 students exceeded their goal by so much that the 2025 goal had to be adjusted. And since they exceeded by 4%, went ahead and just looked for maintaining that into this school year. And then this is the disaggregation by student group. Moving to kindergarten, looking to increase the percentage of kindergarten students who achieve average or above from 71 to 73% in math by May 2025. And then disaggregated by student group. For our first graders, looking to increase the percentage of first grade students who achieve average or above from 51 to 71% by May of 2025. And then this is that disaggregation by student group. And then our second graders looking to increase the percentage from those who achieve average or above from 44 to 63% by May of 2025. Disaggregated by student group. Again, those last 4 slides were grade level to grade level, different sets of students. This slide here shows cohort performance and goal for numeracy. So it provides the look at what did the same set of kids do in 2024 and what are we asking them to do in 2025. So again, our pre-kindergartners don't have a prior year. Those are new kiddos coming into pre-K4. So we're asking them to kind of maintain what our different set of pre-K4-year-olds did this last year. Second row shows that our kindergartners who were asking to do 73% for 2025 last year as pre-kindergartners, they scored 92% on their different assessment in pre-K. So there is a drop there. For first graders, when they were in kindergarten last year, they were at 71% average or above, and we're asking them to maintain that into first grade. And then our second grade students last year when they were in first grade were 51% were above, average or above, and we're asking them to get to 63% as second graders.
Dr. Lopez, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, sir.
On the kinder to first grade,
yes.
71% to 71%, do we have any idea what data trends have been from kinder to first in the past? Have we seen drops in performance, or have they stayed relatively the same?
No, we have seen drops. This particular class of kindergartners that are now going into first grade, they did have the pre-K4 exposure. They were our first pre-K4 class, universal pre-K4. So it'll could be slightly different than what we've seen from kiddos that entered kindergarten and then dropped into first grade who hadn't attended pre-K4 with us before. So their exposure to treatment is different. So any kind of historical data wouldn't include that factor.
And I wanted to bring that up a little bit. We've been looking at that specifically in the past. We've noticed that we have dropped off at first grade some. So I wanted to make sure the board realize is that 71 to 71 is a stretch from our past performance right now. We do think we have a group of kids that have experienced some different learning experiences so far, and we're excited about that. But there was a concern there, and I think that's why you see that flat data. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Proceed. Okay. Now moving into STAR, again, this is just for 3rd grade and 8th grade. So for our 3rd grade students, we're looking for an increase in their performance in math on STAR from 63% to 67% at approaches or above, from 34% to 37% at meets or above, and then from 11 to 14% at the master's level. And this shows the disaggregation by performance level and by student group. And then for our 8th grade math students, we're looking for an increase in their performance on STAR from 54% to 61% at approaches or above, 21 to 22% at meets level or above, and then from 5 to 5 at the master's level. If you'll look at the table, the number in the parentheses is the difference in what those 8th graders now did on their STAR in 7th grade. You're probably alarmed by the 20% difference at the approaches level or above. That's because our 7th graders are kind of broken into regular 7th grade math and then 7th grade advanced math. This value compares to just the subset of regular 7th grade math students. So the 7th grade advanced math, some of them will go into regular 8th grade and take the regular 8th grade math test. Others will stay on the advanced track and take the Algebra 1 test. So that value is a little misleading. And many of the 7th graders that didn't reach approaches, it was by 1 or 2 items. And so the growth model is based on either a 1 or 2 item increase from last year to this year. So you just have a bunch of students that are right on the edge. So if they just improve by 1 or 2 items, you're going to see a large jump at that approaches grade level. I just wanted to point that out. And then this is the disaggregation by performance level and student group. That finishes up the House Bill 3 portion of the goals. I'll now move into the district improvement plan performance objectives that are being proposed. So the first goal and performance objective is in the overall district reading category. So this is all of our AISD students 3rd through English 2, and we're looking for an increase in their performance on STAR or STAR EOC from 70 to 72% at the approaches level or above, 45 to 46% at meets level or above, and then from 15 to 17% at the master's level. The value in the parentheses is the difference in not 5 to 24 again. It's the difference in performance of the students that are maintained from the 3rd grade through English 1 into 4th grade through English 2. So we have an incoming set of 3rd grade students that we don't have data to compare to. We have English 2 data for kiddos that already passed the test that aren't going to take another reading assessment. So those 2 sets of students are not in that change value. And then this is the disaggregation of the performance level goals by subgroup. Then moving into DIP goal 2, performance objective 1, that's about our overall district math goal, and we're looking to an increase their performance in math on STAR and or STAR EOC from 64% to 70% at approaches or above, from 34% to 37% at meets or above, and then from 12 to 13% at the master's level. Again, you can see the difference of the students that will maintain from one grade level to the next. And this is the disaggregation by performance level and student group. Moving into the 3rd DIP goal, the performance objective there is related to overall district science. And so we're looking that all AISD students that take a STAR or a STAR EOC will increase from 64 to 70% at the approaches level or above, from 33 to 37% at meets level or above, and then from 9 to 12 at the master's level by May of 2025. There is no 4th, 7th, grade test for science, so there's not any value that will show the difference between how they performed in science last year to this year. Yes, God bless you. So that's just different for the reading and the math to the science. This is the science goals disaggregated by performance level and student group. Now moving into the fourth DIP goal, Performance Objective 1, that's around college, career, and military readiness. And we're looking for all of our 12th grade AISD students to increase their CCMR point acquisition from 88% to 90% by August of 2025. And then DIP Goal 5, Performance Objective 1, Behavior and Safety. So we're looking for an increase in our Procedural Effectiveness Factor score from the Campus Safety Working Conditions domain on the AISD staff survey from 3.9 to 4.1. And then our DIP Goal 6, Performance Objective 1, is culture. And we would like AISD to increase their Employee Retention and Satisfaction Index on the AISD staff survey from 3.9 to 4.0. And then finally, our seventh DIP goal is attendance. And we would like all of our AISD students to increase their attendance from 93% to 94% by May of 2025. And administration recommends that the board approve the updated House Bill 3 goals, the district improvement plan goals, and the reporting timeline, which is on the following slide. And that just shows that screeners will be sent to you as a report, CA1 benchmark, and the end of year screeners as well as STAR will be brought in a presentation. And that is the end of that presentation.
All right, Dr. Lopez, thank you so much. It's a lot of data, and I would just want to start by saying it seems like a lot of data tonight, but anyone who was at the workshop, I think we were really well prepared to see what we have tonight. So thank you, and Dr. Smith and staff for prepping us to have this discussion, even though there's a lot here to unpack.
Yeah.
Trustees with comments or questions? I'm seeing Dr. Smith.
I did want to just point out the reporting timeline on the last slide.
Yes, sir. This
is a change in practice, and I wanted to make sure you all are okay with that. You see that not everyone is a presentation. Presentation means we will formally present it to you here. A report means is that we will send that to you in your board communication. We're obviously always willing to present if needed, but we thought reducing the number of the presentations might be wise, and letting you dive into the data a little bit on your own would be wise as well. So that's the purpose behind that. If there are any concerns, please let us know.
Okay, we have some requesters now. Mr. Mike.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez, for the presentation and for the staff's work on this. Just a few. When I look at all the disaggregated data, I'm noticing a trend.
Yes, sir.
There is a trend with regards to the achievement gaps, and it is steady throughout every single grade. And I just want to know if there's a plan in place to close those gaps, or is that too far in depth with what we're talking about tonight?
Do you want to start, Dr. Lopez, or would you like me to?
Go ahead.
So a couple of things on that. Absolutely. It bothers me to say that this is data that you see across the state and the nation, and I need everyone to know and understand that. That does not mean we're going to ignore it, though, and I do believe that we have some actions in our district improvement plan that will address that. Tonight, to your question specifically, are you diving into specific strategies on that? That's not purpose of presentation tonight, right. But we will be bringing you a district improvement plan coming forward, and we will be talking about specific strategies to address. I do wholeheartedly believe that we have continued work to do along with our colleagues across the state and nation in this area, and that's not something we'll shy away from. I also want to make sure that everyone understands that it is a pervasive issue that we're dealing with.
Okay. The other thing, looking at the CCMR goal here, this is a good goal for accountability. But when we look at the CCMR drawdown, are there any, I guess, suggestions on adding the CCMR drawdown to one of our DIP goals?
And by the drawdown, you're talking specifically about the the dollar amounts awarded, is that what I'm
Correct.
understanding? Okay,
The
the dollar
outcome
amounts
bonus
rewarded
funding,
based on
yes.
your performance in
Yes, sir.
college, career, military readiness. I don't know. Yeah, I'll let Dr. Wirtz handle that one. He probably knows a lot more than I do on that.
Good evening, President Chapa, members of the board. So we actually do address the drawdown indirectly in the DIP. The drawdown actually is a 2-year lag indicator. So for example, right now, we're actually getting preliminary early results for 2023, and those final results for the 2023 cohort of kids aren't actually finalized until April of 2025. The problem is the current district improvement plan is intended to address the needs of the kids that are sitting in our schools today, and the drawdown amounts that you receive are projected out based on kids that are no longer in the system. So the way that we address it is we look at the actual indicators that actually produce a drawdown down the road. So if you'll notice on the CCMR bonus outcomes, TSIA2 is a common denominator in both of those two. In order for you to qualify as college ready or career ready, one of the indicators is you have to be TSIA2 ready. If you were to look at our strategies in this year's district improvement plan, you're going to see that one is directly addressed because we know that we want to pull that score up, which will then make it possible to reach outcome bonus more readily down the road when those cohort of kids actually leave, assuming that they either acquire an industry 1 or 2 cert, which is part of this our CTE program, or if they persist and move into college after high school and they're there on the 12th day of the fall semester. So we do address it. We just address it through the indicators that kids have to acquire in order to make it possible. It's kind of, you do this now so that you can reap the benefits down the road, because the actual bonus is based on a cohort of kids that have long since left us. So you have to address them while they're here, and the way you do is through the indicators.
So just to clarify, we're taking active measures to ensure that we actively address that.
Yes.
Because just looking at the data and looking at the amount of, the pot of money that is there, it is a significant amount of money that is left on the table.
That's right.
That I think as a district we could utilize.
Yeah, it's actually a common challenge around the whole state to actually acquire and actually draw all the money that's available, because it's a very high standard. Not only do kids have to acquire, for example, their level 1 or level 2 cert, for example, if they're doing career readiness, they then have to also achieve either an ACT, SAT, or a TSIA score, and the combination of those two. So let's say, for example, in order to qualify for a bonus, you have all your students graduate, you have all of them meet all the indicators to actually qualify for a bonus, and then there's a threshold that's based on the 25th percentile, and you only earn the bonus on anybody that's above that threshold. So everyone's trying to get more kids because you want all the kids that are above the threshold. The challenge is that you don't actually acquire the bonus until after those kids are finished. And in some situations, the reality is the choices they make after they leave you is what qualifies you for the bonus. For example, we do everything we can with FAFSA, helping students enroll in college, but they physically have to be present in class on the 12th day of school in the fall semester, and the National Clearinghouse data tells us whether they're sitting there or not, and then you get bonus money based on it. So to address it in a short way, yes, we do that, but we focus specifically on the indicators we know need to go up to make that possible down the road. So for example, TSIA, if students don't qualify with a qualifying score, it won't matter if they go to college, it won't matter if they actually earn a level 1 or level 2 cert, because they won't qualify. We won't qualify for the bonus if they don't have that indicator. So we are focused on that, because that's one area in our district we know we need to raise, because we have a lot of kids that actually get a CCMR point on the accountability side through College Bridge, but that doesn't help you on the bonus side. So that's one of our strategies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then the last thing, it's just pre-K. We're crushing it on pre-K. And the data shows that the students who actually attend pre-K, when they start going through the process, I mean, they do very well. And, you know, it may not be for this, but I'm just asking questions. With regards to our enrollment and the eligible seats available, are we at 100% capacity, or do we have room to grow on that to get more students into pre-K so that we can start developing that good cohort of students?
We did have less students in our pre-K4 program this year than we did last year. As far as the capacity for seats or for staffing, I don't think I can speak to that right now. I'd have to look into that and report back to y'all. Okay. And Dr. Smith, do you know? Yeah, I don't.
I wish I did. I don't. We can definitely get that information and put that in a board report for y'all about what capacity we're at. I do think this leads directly into one of your legislative priorities to talk about full day funding for pre-K. So just one of those things to keep in the back of your mind.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Ms. McMurrow.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Thank you, President Chapa. We had a very rich discussion leading up to this presentation in our academic workshop a couple weeks ago. So my only question tonight is about the timeline. Can we go back to the very last slide?
Yes, ma'am.
When is CA1? Because January just seems like a lag in reporting. So
it does.
Is there like how many months between the actual administration and the presentation do we have? And I just want to get some insight behind that.
There's 2 months in between, and because the CA1 is a 2-week window, and it's in those first November 6th through the 19th. Teachers have until the 22nd to grade their ECRs and their short constructed responses. Then we go into Thanksgiving break. We come back from Thanksgiving break. That's when we start our equating and our accountability projections based on that data. That just isn't going to be ready in time for that first December board meeting. And there's only one in December, so then it moves it to when we get back from Christmas vacation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then my only other question about the timeline is, it's actually, I'm curious why we're getting a report around STAR. Is that because the presentation would be after this time? Okay.
Yes.
So the presentation would happen.
Oh, absolutely. But for immediately getting y'all the data.
Okay.
Because those board meetings are like called if they're not guaranteed in June, correct?
I'm just wanting to verify, are we going to get a presentation on STAR data?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That happens
That's really
later.
important. Okay.
But we also want to make sure that as trustees, you have the data before we go into that month of July.
Understood.
So you'll get that information, and then the presentation will come in
Okay,
August.
so the timeline continues, but this is the timeline for this school year.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to double check on that. I do think that the most important thing we can talk about on this dais is student outcomes. So that's my purpose for asking. And I do understand in June, it's preliminary results at best. And so we will eventually get a presentation around STAR data. That's mainly what I needed to know. Thank you.
And one of these days, accountability. Maybe.
Maybe.
Or maybe not. I would be really disappointed.
Thank you, Ms. McMurrow. Do we have any other trustees with comments or questions? Okay, I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
So I understand, so this builds off the discussion that we started to have towards the end of our workshop on the, SMART goals and looking at attainability. And I think that you did a good job of explaining the thought process and the charts that are here showing that, when we're setting a goal for example, first grade literacy, we're at a 62. Next year's proposed goal is a 72. That's not really necessarily asking folks to make a 10-point jump, because the cohort that's coming in, we have to look at them and where they were at, and so they may be in a better spot, and it may be more of an achievable goal.
Yes, sir.
Than it looks like on, say, for example, the chart.
On the slide by itself, where it's previous grade to.
So understanding that, and I think this ties in a little bit with some comments that Trustee Mike made earlier about gaps that we know that we have, but also in the workshop, and it's not here tonight because it doesn't really fit, but we had some more granular data on the screener results, and we do see as folks progress through our system, we see some of the indicators starting those gaps to develop, and the data doesn't look as great as it does maybe in pre-K and kinder and first. And so my concern is that even if we have, say, a first grade cohort that looks like it's doing well, we have an aggressive goal for second grade, they might be better positioned to meet that goal than this year's class was. but we also know that the screener data suggests that they're going to lag. They're going to start developing some gaps and lag at the same time that we're sending them into a position to try to meet a more aggressive goal.
If everything stayed the same.
If everything
Yes.
stayed the same. So, this is like hitting a moving target. I still, if I'm looking at some of these, the cohort performance and goal for literacy, even if you read across the table, a 3-point jump, I think, right, that sounds in the realm of achievable, but then we still have, for example, that would be a 9-point jump.
Yeah.
If we go to the one for
math.
Some of these are far apart. For cohort performance and goal on numeracy for first grade, even reading across the table, that is a 12-point jump. And I guess my overall comment or question here is, during our workshop, I think staff there was a question specifically asked about this, and the answer we got is, in a system like ours with the challenges that we have, the size that we have, looking to move the needle, if you can reliably, consistently move the needle 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, you're doing pretty good. And so even with that and the caveats that have been built in, and looking at how one cohort flows to the next and how they're achieving, we still have some goals that I think that we're setting that are
pretty lofty.
I would say hyper aggressive in my mind. And I don't want to be disparaging in saying that. My concern is that I was glad to hear your explanation, because when I first read this presentation, I think there was 1 year where we were looking at maybe trying to go for, a 20-point jump.
Yeah.
And so, second grade numeracy, it looks like at first glance, going from 44 to 63. So I think there's a line, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. There's a line between, we don't want to send the message that we are not holding people to high expectations, because we do. But I also think, and this is not a point that I made, I can't take credit for this, I think actually Ms. Haynes made this point, there's a fine line between saying that, right, by changing a goal is something you want to achieve, right, and that doesn't necessarily, by changing a goal, that's not signaling to folks you don't have to work as hard, right? You're making it more possible for them to achieve a goal, given that they're already going to be doing the work. So that's one side, is we don't want to lower expectations, but also we don't want to send a message, I think, to staff who are working in some very challenging circumstances, that we've set a goal that really, on the SMART scale, is not as attainable as we might hope. And so the frustration of, we've been asked to do something that really looks like all the hard work in the world, we're not going to get there.
Yeah.
So can you walk me through why these particular ones, I put me more at ease about saying that these are hyper aggressive?
No, certainly Dr. Wirtz and I also kind of, the first to second grade class was the one that we were like, that one still is a little bit of a concern. And even though early literacy and early numeracy are going to get major attention this year for district improvement plan strategies, it still is aggressive. And so we decided we're going to leave the screener goals as they are. We don't have a lot of years to look at classes and the longitudinal history like we do with STAR. And even though STAR changes, we still know that fluctuations and change on STAR are not typical, except for, of course, in the last 5 years because of what we've been through. So we kind of decided we're going to leave this one, even though it's a 9% and a 12% expectation for our second grade class. That certainly doesn't mean we have to leave it. We just brought that forward. We thought, we've gone through and changed third through high school, and we've updated a few of our pre-Ks because we were reaching there. We're going to leave the screener goals and kind of see how that lands. But that doesn't mean it has to be adopted that way, and we certainly can go back to the goal setting and adjust just that class and bring that back.
And see, and those stand out to me because I'm looking through the rest of them, and I think the vast majority of these are the achievable 1 to 5, maybe a little here or there, you know, some difference, but those really stand out.
They do.
And what you just said also doesn't exactly say we're super comfortable with them. It just says we don't have enough familiarity with the way that these screeners work. The noise, you know, we see noise from year to year. It may be that what we're seeing right now, the goal we set is within the realm of we may actually be there. This was a noise year and we don't really know.
And and Dr. Wirtz is going to provide a response as well. So a step aside.
Make me feel better, Dr. Wirtz.
Well, so this is actually one we spent a lot of time talking about because we were trying to find a scientific way to get to it. The other adjustments that were based on cohort there was a rational, like, scientific way that we got about those numbers. The challenge with this specific group is kind of what she said earlier, where you have different screeners used at pre-K and you have new components that are a part of this group that are different from others, meaning you have groups of kids now that are pre-K and kinder who are now moving into first grade, who have like this background. And then you have this one class of students that goes from first grade to second grade where you see the gap. And that is exactly where our challenges lie. Like when you look at our screener data, the drop happens in first grade and it goes further in second, then it bounces back in third. So we talked about whether we make the gap smaller. What we landed on was remaining with the goals that were already adopted by the board, because these are the goals that were established in terms of the 5-year trajectory back when we originally adopted them. Because if we were to lower them, it would literally be a situation where we have to like make our best educated guess about where that number would be, because there wasn't exactly a scientific model that you could apply to it like you could the others, because there's all these cohorts in front of them. And so, and then the other rationale we thought about.
Before you move on from that point, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So the 9 and the 12, are you saying they're primarily coming from the fact that they're based on the projections that we set a year or 2 ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so the numbers for these groups, these final 5-year goals, these were the targets that were originally established. So basically, what we said was, this was the original target we're trying to get to. And you'll notice on the other ones, though the end target point is still the same too. We just adjusted the 2025 year, but the projection to 26, which is the end of the 5-year point, is still the same as well. So the same idea was applied to these primary grades. The only difference is there wasn't a scientific way with a cohort way to really crunch it down to a smaller number like we could do in the others. And so that's why you see it the way that it is. One thing I would say too that we also talked about is this is one of the most glaring areas of opportunity in the district. It is first and second grade. And it's specifically in very specific skills. And if you were to think about like the simple view of reading, it is the decoding side that is really getting all the first and second graders in terms of our skills. And so our thoughts were, while the goal is a real stretch goal as a system, we really do need a stretch, because what we do find is that our kids progressively get better, now, especially now they've had pre-K, because there's a 20-point betterment because of the pre-K situation, but then they drop in first and second grade, and then they're bouncing back at STAR. If we want to make STAR more strong in third grade, we have to build a stronger foundation in first and second. So that's what our rationale was for leaving it, acknowledging that it is a stretch goal.
Okay, so it's based on goals that were set 2 years ago, but you're saying that we don't have a better way of coming up with something that's maybe more, you said scientific, but maybe more realistic. And so you think that with pre-K, the cohort coming in, and some other hard work that we're doing, that they're stretches, but they're achievable.
And the specific stretch you're finding is going to be between, like you see right here, between first and second grade. It's like this group moving from first grade cohort, now they're moving into second grade. That's where you're seeing the big stretch. Like you'll see it at like the second grade target. And the reason why we feel better about the first grade one is because you can see the trajectory of students as they went from pre-K to kinder, and now they're going from kinder to first. Well, they're doing better in kinder than they did the year before because of full day pre-K. And the goal is, can you sustain it into first grade and actually benefit from that growth as they move in? the biggest jumps that you're going to see, even when you look at the goals, like when you get to second grade, you're like, wow, that's a really big one. I think you said one of them was 12 points. I'm going off the top of my head. And that's because it was an original target, and we're trying to get to that target, even though we know that's a stretch. But yeah, it was really about how do we do it in a meaningful way that's more scientific in nature, because with the goals we presented you before, we can tell you specifically like how we landed on those. They weren't just like picked out of the air.
Yeah, I guess sort of backing into the point I was trying to make, because I'm not making it very articulately, is what is the difference between what you just said and why is sticking with 12 sort of why is that a scientific base?
No, well, it's because that's
Instead
a good
of just
question.
sticking with, we set that, so we're just
Because when they were originally established, they were established with a specific, there was a specific statistical way that those goals were landed on over the 5-year period. The reason why the others have been adjusted in STAR, for example, over time was simply because we were reacting to the situations the way our kids were doing. But now the challenge is we're at the end. We're getting to the very end of that 5-year term, and there's very little wiggle room in terms of moving the numbers. You have a little more space in the other grade levels because your overarching, for example, reading goal on the dip, or your overarching math goal on the dip, it's the sum of all the grades 3 through 10, or actually 11, and so those numbers you can collapse a little easier because we're not talking about every single grade level individually in terms of your adoption. For primary grades, for House Bill 3, you're pulling out specific data points for screener data, and so you're looking at individual grade levels. So we do have a scenario right now where you have 2 grade levels where we're asking for a larger jump than pretty much in any of the other ones. Yeah. We could, like she says, we could go back and adjust them. It would be lowering the target, but it isn't necessarily because there is a meaningful scientific way to get to that lower target if we're changing it based on just adjusting it. Whereas the number that sits there today is the one that was developed in the model when it was originally designed for the 5-year period.
Do we know anything between the time that the model was designed 2 years ago and now? Do we have new data that suggests that 12 isn't the right number? For example, for that grade. What do you mean by that? So, because we have screener data, we have things. So, is there anything we've seen the lag? So, we set that 2 years ago. Have we seen that lag that we're seeing? That gap?
Yeah, so
have the gaps narrowed since we used that model 2 years ago?
The challenge in first and second grade has been persistent. It's been persistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will collect my thoughts and move on to Mr. Wilbanks.
So if we can back up, you seem like you knew specific tasks that are needed in first grade and second grade numeracy that we're deficient on in part of your root cause analysis, correct?
Well, specifically, I was talking about literacy.
Okay, but what about numeracy? Do we know what specific skills are keeping these students back in first grade and second grade?
I have the data in my office. I don't have that one off the top of my head specifically around numeracy. I know literacy because that's what we're talking a lot about right now specifically.
Okay, well let's back up. Let's go to, can we pull up the literacy, the same chart for literacy?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So let's back up even, well, tell me, we'll stick on this question. What are the specific skills that most of our students district-wide are deficient in that we know are the low-hanging fruit to close this gap?
It's the decoding skills.
Decoding. Okay. And so what strategies are we planning in the next 2 years to boost that? And do you think that there's that's going to make this gap, closing this gap, more achievable?
Yes, it has to be. So right now, the challenge when you look at the data is specifically around phonemic awareness, all the decoding skills that are part of the simple view of reading. And so one of the things we're spending our time in terms of like strategy development is around the research practices that helps teachers make we're calling like the knowing doing gap in the classroom visible. So for example, all of our teachers in the primary grades attended the science of like basically the reading academies. That focused on the science of teaching reading. For those of us who have participated in that or in modules of that, it was a very comprehensive theoretical view in terms of teaching. It's hard. It's a very challenging course. So it's not the knowing, it's how you actually apply that in the classroom with a group of kids. And so the strategies we're working on right now is around professional learning and support in the classroom for primary grade teachers, specifically in grades 1 and 2, that focus on the transfer of that knowledge into practice in the classroom that are focused on those decoding skills. So yesterday, for example, we were in classrooms at 2 of our elementary schools, specifically in 1st and 2nd grade, looking at the systematic instruction around phonics in the classroom. Like we went to go see what that looked like and how they're implementing our HMH curriculum. So the strategies that you're going to see in the district improvement plan that we're going to be publishing in the next couple of weeks will be directly addressing 1st and 2nd grade in that area of decoding in the early parts of literacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on numeracy, we just don't have the data in front of us, but we've done that similar root cause analysis on specific skills that our students come out of kindergarten and or 1st grade and 2nd grade that they're deficient in, that we know need to be areas to address in terms of professional development, providing curriculum and tools in the classroom to address those gaps.
So this is the thing. Some of the strategies that will be designed are going to be campus-based because the reason they're struggling vary from school to school. The reasons are not all the same. Right. The other thing that we have to think about when it comes to the district improvement plan, it's kind of that concept we talked about earlier around strategy. You can't do everything all at once. And when I say that, I'm thinking, for example, of a 1st grade teacher. When we design strategies for the district improvement plan, one of the questions we ask ourselves is, how many of these strategies touch the same individual over the course of the year? Knowing that if I'm a 1st grade teacher, I can't be growing in literacy and growing in math and growing in science all in the same year. They're going to work on that at the campus level, but I can't expect a teacher, for example, to go to professional learning for, 4 sessions in reading and another 4 sessions in math. There has to be a collaborative effort with the campus to move the needle. So at the district level, around 1st and 2nd grade, you're going to see specific work around literacy. In the math component, those sections will be provided primarily through the support at the campus level. We'll do it through the curriculum. We'll do it through our support, but we don't plan on pulling teachers out of the classroom on top of literacy throughout the course of the year. We have to strategize, like, where are you going to start first? And literacy is impacting kids across all content areas, and so that's our starting point.
Okay. All right. So the second part of my question before I get to the end is, what percentage of the our first cohort that was in pre-K that moved into kinder, and how many of our current kinder went to full day pre-K?
How many of the current students sitting in the classroom were in full day pre-K? I'd have to pull that number. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Is it 50%? Is it?
Yeah, I just don't know.
It's more than that. Okay, so there's a good chance that that's going to have a significant impact on the overall achievement that we see going forward.
We noticed that there was a 20-point difference, 26 points difference between students who attended pre-K and took the assessments in kinder, and those who did not attend pre-K full day and took the assessments in kinder.
I know, but if they're only 50%, then that 26% difference is only 13%.
Yeah,
okay.
I
so
think
it is going to be significant.
I think there's probably like 20 to 25% that don't come back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that impacts on whether we think we need to adjust these two goals down.
I don't think it does for like the first grade one is pretty, like you're going from kinder, if you look at this goal, for example, kinder is 69%. That cohort, we're asking them to move to 72% in first grade. That doesn't, what we're talking about in terms of pre-K doesn't really impact the discussion that Mr. Chapa and I were having, because it's first to second grade and that group hasn't hit anything yet.
Yeah, so we don't have any cohort that was
Not
in
yet.
pre-K
Not yet.
there, so that's going to be a big stretch.
That is.
So that's, all right, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And so I would agree with Mr. Chapa that these, like, SMART goals have to be attainable and reasonable. And this is, like, I'm all for stretch goals. And there is some variability. I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy on numeracy that we're going to be, that's a 12-point gap, right? I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy that we're going to be focusing on numeracy and be able to achieve, close that gap.
Well, I do want to say, I definitely don't want to give the impression there's not a focus on numeracy. What I'm suggesting is there is a strong relationship between the work that the district level people work on with campuses, because there's a lot of work happening on the campuses in primary grade numeracy. I'm just suggesting that if you're asking us at the district level, like, where are we going to pull out teachers? What's the focus going to be? What I'm suggesting is we can't ask one person to go to multiple days, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Like, I have a lot of confidence at the campus level that a lot of discussions happening around numeracy in primary grades. I don't want to give the impression that that work is not happening. When you look at campus improvement plans, you'll see that work there. I was just articulating where the district level focus was going to be in primary grades when it came to, like, district-wide strategies.
Well, yeah. I'll defer to Dr. Smith on if we think we need to lower both this goal, which is 9 points, by a couple of points, and maybe more the numeracy one for second grade. I think first grade's achievable, I think, in both slides. I don't remember what it was, but I think if there's any area where we might want to adjust, it would be in the second grade literacy and second grade numeracy.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Richardson?
I have a two-part question. So how did the district choose the math screener for our second graders?
The math screener?
So there are two strands to choose from, right? How did we choose the one we went with?
I'm not following you. What you mean by two strands?
So when we're looking at data.
Which slide are you looking at?
I'm looking at just overall looking at our numbers with our math. So when we have.
You're referring to the screener outcomes?
Yes.
So basically, when we analyzed our math data, what we did is we looked at the skills that are actually assessed in the math area for MAP. And we went from Algebra 1 and we just worked our way backwards to see, like, where was the starting point. And the problems that were there persisted. So the challenge is when you actually look at the outcomes from MAP screener, there are probably 5 categories that are persistently struggling, and they are persistent through. We identified the top 2, the ones that were basically that were the strongest one, the ones that showed the greatest gap. It didn't mean that there weren't 2 others. We just selected the ones that were the most prominent of the 5.
So when we do these screeners, we know that K through second gets audio support when they do it, correct?
What do you mean, audio?
They are able to have it to
read
hear.
To them.
Yes.
If they have an accommodation. Any students who need an accommodations can have things, yeah.
But if we have second through fifth graders, do they get those same accommodations?
If it's required, with any kind of testing scenario, students who need specific accommodations can have those accommodations.
This is strictly, and we hear feedback from teachers all the time. And one of the things that they had shared was that sometimes it's much easier for those students that are K through second because they do have the audio choice. And I didn't, and I could have understood it wrong, Dr. Wertz. But the way I understood it was with or without the accommodations, they had that option. It was a given choice, and that our scores would possibly increase if the older students, 2nd through 5th, would be able to have that same opportunity.
So I'd have to verify that at the primary grades. It's possible. I just don't know that off the top of my head. I will say that when you look at the data, there's no evidence of that because the actual areas of weakness in 2nd grade are the same ones we see in 4th.
Okay. Okay.
It's persistent.
Okay, I was just thinking that if we're saying the elementary school teachers that I've spoken with, they have verified that they do get audio, K through 2nd, and yes,
Meaning we'll read it to them.
Yes, reading it to them. So, and you're saying, but those issues still persist in 4th grade, correct? But if 4th graders had that option to have the audio, would our scores increase?
I don't know if that's the case or not. I couldn't tell you.
Would there be a way to give our teachers feedback to ask if, I'm not saying that is.
The reason I'm saying that is because that assessment is norm referenced.
Okay.
And so they're comparing 4th graders of the same age bracket to other students who took the assessment across the country that take that assessment. Okay. So basically, the results we get show our 4th graders compared to where they would be expected to be based upon their age group and where they would necessarily be like in math at that time. So the only reason I would be hesitant in saying that would be the case is because any 4th grader taking this assessment would be part of that reference point, and so our numbers would reflect that. I don't think that would be the case.
Okay. I respect your expertise. I respect yours, Dr. Lopez, but I also respect our teachers in the classroom who are the hands and feet on the ground saying, if we did this adjustment, it could make a difference. I also know our role is governance, and that's not my sandpit to play in. I need to let y'all do your job. So thank you for the presentation, and thank you for letting me ask questions that we hear about. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Mr. Mike.
Just real brief again, because y'all are bringing things to my head. When we look at these numbers, are we doing anything different from what we have done in the past to justify the increase that we're wanting to get? Or are we just spinning our wheels?
No, that's the relationship between the goals that we're setting in the district improvement plan that we're going to publish. The actual strategies is the doing part. Like, what do we, because to the point that Dr. Lopez said earlier, if you leave everything exactly the same and nothing changes, then you get the same outcome. Are the strategies that are actually embedded in the district improvement plan are directly connected to the findings that we talked about during the workshop, and those are the areas that we're going to try to address with the idea that if you apply the right strategy in the right area at the right time to the right amount of dosage, that it will change the outcome. That's the theory of action.
Yeah, and so that, for me, I know we're looking at a 9,000-foot overview. That's the tough part for me, is I see numbers, but they're just numbers to me. And I don't know, what's the best way to describe it, right? I'm the type of person where I like to see, not that I approve the strategy, but I like to see, okay, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to get there. This, to me, doesn't tell me how we're going to get there. It just says, trust us, we'll get there. And when I look at historical data, because, the data's there, I look at the trends, they're there, right? They're just numbers. And I think I've said this multiple times on this dais that I want to be the best district in the state of Texas. And so numbers are numbers, but if they're just numbers if we don't get there. So that's how I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. There are no other trustees requesting to speak at this time. Unless there's further comments, I would ask for a motion. Ms. McMurrow.
President Chapa, if this is appropriate at this time, I want to make a motion. I move that the board adopt the proposed 24-25 HB3 and District Improvement Plan goals and performance objectives as presented.
We have a motion from Ms. McMurrow to adopt the goals as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second from Ms. Fowler. The motion is on the floor for further discussion, or if there are amendments. Mr. Wilbanks?
Based on the discussion we just had, I know we're going to get the how we're going to achieve these in our district improvement plan presentation at the next meeting, right? So, but, I mean, as it stands now, I think it might warrant us to re-examine those two specific goals, and if there's any consensus here on if we should adjust them slightly, because as they stand now, they just don't see. I'm with Mr. Chapa. They're not achievable.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Would you like to put that in the form of an amendment to the motion?
I would first like to defer to staff to say if we were to lower those, what would be I'd still want to create stretch goals because we need to push those two grades specifically in both numeracy and literacy. So either Dr. Smith or Dr. Wertz, is your preference to keep them where they are, or if you had the ability to adjust them, would you adjust them by the numeracy one by 3 or 4 points, and then numeracy by a couple of points? You tell us.
So I appreciate the dialogue tonight, because I can hear how passionate you all are about this, and we all want to see these things improve. There are a couple things just from my perspective on this, and this may sound flippant, and I don't mean it to be. We are going to do the work with our teachers no matter what. And I believe in the work that's going on with our teachers. And so when we get to the district improvement plan and we talk about those strategies, I feel very comfortable in that. When we talk about the target, and I think Stephen has done a good job tonight articulating the challenge with setting this target right now, I don't know that I have a hard opinion on it, and here's the why. Because we are not going to go to our teachers and beat them over the head and say, you have to achieve this amount. We're actually going to invest in them and say, here's the professional learning and support we want to invest in for you. And we're going to work together to do our best to achieve as much as we possibly can. So that's where I am on this, because I do believe Stephen has outlined that the challenge that we have with this target in particular in this cohort of kids. And we know that it requires more resource. I believe in the plan that Stephen and team have been working on, and I think that we can make significant strides there. Do I have a scientific method to be able to say 12 points is it? I don't right now. I just don't, and I don't think we have the ability to say that. We are more than willing to do what the board would like. If you'd like us to lower by a couple or leave them the same, I'm good either way. I just need you to know, I think sometimes we worry that the targets that we set are going to be held over people's heads. And what I'm saying in this one is this is a challenge for us. We're going to do everything we can to invest in this year. We know future cohorts of kids are going to be able to address this moving forward because they're getting the pre-K opportunity that others didn't have. And I feel comfortable in our team in investing in that. If we're all on the same page, that at the end of the year, you're not going to say, hey, Matt, you only did 9 and you said you'd do 12. I'm okay with that, because I realized that we're having a hard time picking the actual target on this one. So I don't have a hard opinion on exactly what that is, but I'm far more focused on the strategies that we need to employ.
And I would concur. And it sounds like my colleague, Mr. Mike, is also more interested in the strategies, and that we've really identified the root cause of those gaps and how we're going to address it going forward. So with that, I'm fine with adopting the goals as presented in the current motion.
Okay. We have a motion that's already pending on the floor. There are no trustees that have requested to speak. And there's no amendment, so we will move on to voting on the motion. This is to adopt the HB3 and District Improvement Plan goals and performance objectives. We have 6 trustees voting in the affirmative, 1 trustee voting in the negative. The motion carries 6-1.
Thank you.
Just one moment. Okay, we will now move on to our consent agenda portion of the evening. I'll call for items to be withdrawn from consent agenda. Seeing no, Ms. Richardson.
I'm not going to make a withdrawal, but Trustee McMurrow, can I borrow your book for a second? Yes. We need to make an amendment, an adjustment on an item, and would like to request on amendment on item L. This is approval of the minutes from the previous meetings. On the previous meetings, our SLAB students are incorrectly assigned, and that's wonky. So if we could just have a resubmitted list from Dr. Jarko emailed over to us and correct that. But that is not correct for the minutes.
Okay, that doesn't require, she's correct, that doesn't require being pulled. That's a technical amendment.
No, we don't need to pull it. We just need to correct it.
That is a correction. We'll get that noted. Any trustees requesting pulls? Seeing none, I have 3 pulls to make. I'm going to pull consent agenda items C, D, and J. We'll move on to vote on or discussion on consent. Seeing no discussion requests, we will move to vote on consent.
Minus the 3 items.
Minus C, D, and J.
So moved.
I have a motion for Mr. Wilbanks. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Ms. McMurrow. Please vote on consent. All trustees voting in the affirmative. Consent unanimously carries 7-0. We'll now move on to consideration of the items pulled from consent agenda. I will actually go out of order here, and I pulled item J at the request of Dr. Smith. I understand that there's some additional work that needs to be done on the district side on that item, and so unless there's objection, I'd ask for unanimous consent to just table that to a future meeting. Seeing no objection, item J is tabled to a future meeting. And then we'll move on to items C and D, which we can essentially the same. I just have a couple questions for Mr. Horn, who I can see has already making his way down.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Horn.
Yes, sir.
I just have a couple questions. So we are voting to select construction manager at risk for these 2. Can you just walk me through why the determination was made to go with that?
Certainly. Initially, when we had these planned, we had each of these stadiums, Glaspie and Cravens and Wildman, following behind one another, and in progression. And with the delays we had with Glaspie relative to the PD process or plan development process as we went through with the city of Arlington, that pushed us back considerably. We were approximately 2 years behind on those projects, and so we want to accelerate Craven and Wildman together. At the same time, we've worked with Dr. Hill and his athletic staff to make sure that as Glaspie comes online and that we have Choctaw still available, we'd like to accelerate both those 2 together at the same time so that we can move those ahead and stay relatively on track to finish the bond and finish those projects on time. Those 2 projects will be considerably more difficult. We want to bid those together and hopefully gain some value by doing so. That process, if I can employ the use of a CMAR or construction manager at risk, will gain significantly by their expertise to help schedule and set those projects along the way. They'll also help us to, as we're working with our architect, to find efficiencies and look at ways to save money and time as well. So this is, like we've talked about in the past, when we have difficult projects, very challenging, larger projects like this, this is perfect for CMAR. And we're not seeing a tremendous amount of difference at this point in time between the CMAR bids and our numbers, our guaranteed maximum prices, and the CSP prices that we're getting on the street. So there's really not any difference that would preclude us from not taking advantage of that contractor's expertise during the process.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're sort of accelerating these along.
Yes, sir.
I know that the need that we have had we need 3 competition fields. Is that, are we going to construct Cravens and Wildman almost simultaneously, or is one still going to go first, followed by the second?
They would be simultaneous. We might see as much as 2 or 3 weeks between the two, simply for the reason that I think a CMAR is going to hire the same subs to do both. So you might see your site work contractor start at one, and as they finish some phase of that, they would shift over. And whether that's Cravens or Wildman being slightly ahead of the other, they would likely do that to gain efficiency and save some dollars with the subs. But at the end of the projects, they'll both come together and finish at the same time.
Okay, so then what will the 3 competition fields be while they're simultaneously under construction?
There will be 2 at this point. There might be some use of Workman Field, but primarily we would be looking, according to Dr. Hill, we'd be looking at Glaspie and Choctaw, and we would likely have a game, instead of having games only on Friday nights like we're doing now, we'd probably have some games on Thursday nights as well. So that would be how we managed to use 2 stadiums instead of 3, is my understanding.
Okay. That leads to some further questions, but not appropriate for the moment.
Okay.
So I noticed that the amount that's going out for the budget on these is it's higher than what when we reallocated the bond, reprioritized the bond projects even last August.
Right.
It's more than what we talked about then.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And I assume that's because Glaspie ended up being more than what we talked about then.
You are correct.
And so is it still our intent that Wildman and Cravens will be substantially the same?
Yes, that's
as
correct.
Glaspie?
You are correct.
Okay. Those are the only questions that I had.
Okay, yes, sir.
And so unless there's further comments on C and D, I'll move to approve C and D.
Thank you.
Is there a second? A second by Ms. Fowler. Trustees, please vote. All trustees voting in the affirmative. C and D carry 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes consent. We'll now move on to our open forum for non-agenda items. Ms. Acosta, do we have any registered speakers for non-agenda?
President Chapa, we do not.
Having no speakers, we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, if you would like, I would be glad to email you my superintendent's report this week along with slides. I think we might be at a record since I've been here at 10:39. If you want me to present, I'm glad to, but I'd be glad to email that to you as well.
Okay. Trustees with reports.
I mean, I have one that isn't long, but if everyone is tired,
Ms. Haynes, please proceed.
I cannot share it, but I think some people may want to take part in it. So this Saturday, River Legacy is hosting their fall festival, and we have an amazing lineup that will be in our dunk tank, and you may notice some familiar names. So Coach Lerma of Bailey Junior High is going to be there. So anyone watching that wants to come, he did a funny post today about getting revenge, maybe for not getting enough playing time or not making a team, which I thought was pretty funny that he's poking at himself like that. So if you need to get revenge on Coach Lerma, you can come out. Also, we have 2 of our trustees who have agreed to be in the dunk tank. So if for any reason you want to seek revenge on either one of them, I don't know. I will give out coupons. You can come dunk them on me. So, yes, come out, support a good cause, nature education.
How many calls do I get?
The list of folks seeking revenge, I'm sure, will be long and distinguished and growing. Thank you, Ms. Haynes, for advertising that. And I'm looking forward to that event. Okay. Ms. Secretary, do we have any items to consider at this time?
No.
We do not have any items to consider. Okay. We do have some business to consider and finish in closed session, so we will not be adjourning at this time. Instead, at 10:41 p.m., we will move to a closed meeting pursuant to sections 551.071 through 551.084 and 551.089 of the Texas Government Code in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act for the topic set forth on our agenda. We'll move to close at this time.